On the day he passed away, he was doing his job as a porter at a cargo security agency. But all his life, he dreamed of becoming a real warrior, and because of his lame leg, he never managed to do it. Nevertheless, he worked hard and tirelessly and was promoted to the position of chief carrier with the ability to manage the rest of the agency's carriers. That day, he had a gut feeling that something was about to go wrong. While he was thinking, he heard a command to stop immediately. Something was wrong and he looked ahead and saw. The commander-in-chief's hand was raised to the mountain, and he stopped his column and looked cautiously ahead, trying to assess the seriousness of the situation. An unknown group of horsemen was moving toward the convoy of guards, and the chief bearer realized that he had not been worried in vain. He realized that a conflict was brewing, so his colleague asked him not to worry, saying that they would manage on their own, emphasizing that he had a bad leg. Looking at the enemy group, they wondered who they were. Maybe they were civil servants, or maybe they were criminals. The commander-in-chief ordered his aide Jinpeng to take the wallet and follow him, and the rest of us to prepare our weapons for battle. If something went wrong, the group shouted "Yes, sir," and obeyed the orders of the main carrier. Looking in the wake of the command, a colleague asked if everything would be all right, and the chief carrier assured him that no one had ever dared to attack the Heavenly Dragon Agency. In addition, the most experienced commander-in-chief, Habulem, was at the head of their column. Approaching the enemy group, he introduced himself as an escort agency, Heavenly Dragon, if they did not introduce themselves and did not listen to his words. The leader of the enemy group looked at Gabulem and Jinpeng with an evil smile and crazy eyes. In one swift movement, he drew his sword and beheaded them. Now, the new commander-in-chief did not expect such meanness from the enemy. The commander of the enemy group ordered his soldiers to attack the convoy. Obeying the order, the enemy column charged headlong, drawing their swords. The enemy soldiers were strong, ruthless, and fast, with the advantage of horses that helped them move much faster. Their commander-in-chief became excited and gave his soldiers a new order not to leave any prisoners alive, and they were also forbidden to take any prisoners. The agency's commander-in-chief gathered all his will in his fist and gave his first order to the carriers to immediately take up arms and fight back the enemy. The enemy continued to inflict damage. Their movements were fast and confident, and the agency's column did not have time to repel the enemy's attacks. While repelling an enemy attack, the agency's commander-in-chief heard a cry for help. Looking in the direction of the voice, he saw that an enemy soldier was standing over the unarmed carrier. The agency's carrier was begging for mercy, and the enemy's sword was already hovering over him, preparing to attack right now. Luckily, the agency's commander-in-chief appeared before the enemy struck and eliminated him forever. The carrier could not cope with his emotions, and the commander-in-chief quickly brought him to his senses. Looking in the direction of the fight, the carrier asked what they should do if even their soldiers could not cope with the enemy. He added that he would not be able to get far with his lame leg, and that he needed to get away from there immediately. Lowering his head, the commander-in-chief thought about his words and answered with a categorical no, adding that if they did not resist, they would be destroyed soon. Picking up his sword, he bravely rushed to save those who were still fighting on the battlefield. But in the end, because of his sore, limp leg, he lost his balance and flew down to the ground. Cursing his leg and trying to get up, he heard someone shouting at him to continue on his way immediately, otherwise they would all be killed. Looking in front of him, the commander-in-chief saw the abandoned swords and the agency's brothers lost in battle, thinking that he was too late and it was over. Sad thoughts began to creep into his head, whether some cripple would be able to repel such a strong enemy attack. Almost desperate, but strong in spirit, he managed to get to his feet and made a promise to himself that as long as he could move, he would do everything to save at least someone. Climbing onto his chariot and lighting a torch, he shouted at the enemy soldiers, calling them bastards. If they do not immediately retreat, he will set fire to the chariot he is standing on. Smiling and stepping on him, one of the enemies asked what kind of nonsense the agency's commander-in-chief was talking about. Standing his ground, he waved a torch right in front of the enemy's face, forcing him to step back, thus showing the seriousness of his words. The enemy commander, heading for the chariot, asked what his goal was and what he wanted them to do. Then he heard from the man in the chariot that his condition was to let the survivors go, and if not, he would burn the chariot. With a sly smile, he added that the other chariots were empty fakes, so they needed only this one. He took out dynamite and lit it to show the enemy the seriousness of his words, and shouted that they only need the bamboo scroll of the Tao Te Ching, a book written by Lao Tzu thousands of years ago, is in this chariot. Tense at his words, the enemy furrowed his brow and began to think about what decision to make. When he saw the limp, He told him it was a pity that he was just a load carrier, because if not for his leg, he could have become a good warrior. Raising his hand in the air, he ordered his soldiers to immediately stop the attack and release the survivors. The agency commander shouted to his carriers to get off the battlefield as soon as possible, but not everyone managed to do so easily. The carrier he had rescued earlier did not want to leave him among the enemy and insisted that the commander flee with them. The commander told him to run away without him, because if he followed him, the enemies would rush after them before they could finish speaking. He felt that the hand with the dynamite in it had separated from his body because of the suddenness of it, and at first, he didn't even feel pain. Because of his shock, he did not notice that the enemy had insidiously struck him in the back. Satisfied with the result of the damage done, the enemy looked on and smiled victoriously. Stepping on his back, he said that no matter how hard he tried, he was and would be a miserable carrier of the agency, turning him over on his back. He continued to say that he would not fall for his tricks, and unexpectedly saw him lying there, smiling with the same lit dynamite in his hands. The enemy did not even realize that the dynamite had already exploded between the two of them, symbolically putting an end to this battle. The commander-in-chief lay in flames and thought that his life was ending here and now, but he never realized his main dream, which he had been working on all his life, to become a warrior, riding a steep horse to guard cargo. The poorer you are, the more diligently you have to study, but because of your limp. For 30 years, he had been subjected to ridicule from everyone, making him think that it was impossible for a disabled person to even become a regular carrier. He was forced to take part-time jobs, where he also heard that a cripple who wants to become a warrior sounds absurd, and he begged for a chance every time. Suddenly, everything changed. He wondered why he was still alive, why he felt so cold, and fortunately for him, someone's hand rushed to his aid. Once on land, the worried voice of an unfamiliar rescuer begged the young master to come to his senses as soon as possible. When he woke up, he could not understand whether it was a dream or whether he had really moved from one place to another alive and unharmed. The rescuer shook him by the shoulders and kept shouting to the owner, asking him if he was okay, begging him to wake up. Finally, the young man asked him to stop shaking him, thus making it clear that he was fine. Concerned, the rescuer asked the owner if he had regained consciousness and heard a sharp request to leave him alone immediately. Despite the young man's requests, the rescuer kept asking him if he remembered him, and before he could answer, he threw up. The owner could not understand why he was so sick, because he had not had a drink in a long time. When he looked up, he saw his reflection in the water, and a completely different person was looking at him. Jumping off the water, he lost his balance and fell down, stunned to see his new self. The rescuer asked him what was wrong with him and why he was silent. The owner asked what was wrong with his reflection, because it couldn't be him, and the rescuer asked if the young man couldn't recognize himself. Still not understanding, the owner asks who he is if he is not the savior, and he is told that he is the fourth master of the Heavenly Dragon Agency, Li Chen-ren. Unable to believe that he was the same fourth master, he looked at the reflection again to make sure. He screamed out if he was the same vile weakling, and the voice of the savior asked him not to talk about himself in such a way. Li Chen-ren was the fourth master of the Heavenly Dragon Agency for whom he had worked. The youngest son of the king of the Li Agency, Zhongsan, and his maid, he was as handsome as his mother. But he grew up as a round dumbass, and he had no talent for martial arts, let alone science. Worst of all, his mother fell seriously ill and abandoned him, so unlike his brothers, Chen-ren had no relatives to confide in. He quickly dropped out of the struggle for his inheritance and wandered around in complete solitude. At home, no one reckoned with him, but in brothels and gambling houses, his presence was very welcome. But one day, he decided to throw himself to the bottom of the lake just because. His third brother proposed to a girl with whom Chen-ren was head over heels in love all 30 years ago when he first joined the agency. But now he found himself in the body of Li Chen-ren, who almost died that day. He asked how old he was now. The rescuer did not know what was happening to the master. He asked why he was being so polite, and he felt uncomfortable with this, since it was his faithful servant, Chang Sam. The servant exhaled and said that he would be 22 this year, and added that it was too early for him to ruin himself for some girl. Now, Li Chen-ren was sure that he had returned 30 years ago to the very day he ended his life and was reborn. There was no time for fooling around. They had to rush to the residence of the king of the agency, as they had orders to bring the master to him as soon as he regained consciousness. Arriving at his father's residence, he knelt down as a sign of respect and looked at the king intently. A formidable aura worthy of someone who was nicknamed the king of the agency, but he was pulled out of his thoughts by a sudden question of how old he was about to turn. The latter, worried, told him that the king was 52. He asked what he meant, and Li Chengren said 22. The king asked if the rumors that he wanted to kill himself because his brother wanted to marry that woman were true. He wondered what he should do, whether he should answer yes or no, and no matter what he chose, he would not escape the wrath. Having gathered his courage, Li Chengren told the king that those rumors were a blatant lie. The king asked him if it was a lie, and he said it was true, that he was just very drunk and had lost his balance and fallen into the water. The king asked if he had no feelings for that girl at all. He thought about it and quickly realized that he shouldn't lie. After all, to deceive someone, you only need 90% truth and only 10% lies. So the answer was that he liked her that way. But that was in the past, and that at the moment he was not attracted to her at all. Stunned by this answer, the king of the agency asked if he was really okay with the wedding. Li Chengren smiled and said that he did not mind their wedding at all and could even personally help with its organization. But the king was not amused, slamming his hand down on the table and calling his son a bastard, swinging a dagger at him. It flew with incredible speed, cutting through the air directly toward Li Chengren. Would his new life end so quickly, he thought, as the dagger flew straight into his face. With the same speed, without reaching the target, it fell to the floor, right in front of his feet, and he was seriously frightened, thinking that he had almost wet himself. My father shouted that even a weak tiger is still a tiger, and he was a tiger who avoided the battle and still tried to end his life. Even pigs and yard dogs taller than he was, Chengren listened dejectedly without raising his head. The father continued to shout that his son was only 22, but no one knew how much longer he had left, and that he threw himself into the water at the slightest problem. This shames him and the entire agency, so if he wants to end his life so badly, it's better to do it with a dagger. It was unpleasant to hear, but now that he was Li Chengren, he could not avoid the king of the Heavenly Dragon Agency. Without looking up at him, he replied that this was the first time in all these years that he had given him anything, and he gave him a dagger to end his life with. Not expecting such a response from his son, the king pondered his words for some time. Li Chengren simply assumed this option, but given the relationship between them, he was right. Picking up the dagger from the floor and putting it in his hands, he thought that this opportunity could not be ignored. Chengren stood in front of him and said that he had decided to end his life with his dagger, and that he would make sure that his weapon was put to good use. The king did not expect such a manifestation of courage from his son because he had always been a coward. Li Chengren turned his back on him, holding his father's dagger in his hand, and walked away, finishing his rum. Li Zhongsang asked his handyman if his son had just denied him, and the handyman said that it looked like it. Even a worm will escape if it is attacked, summarized the king of the agency. He only went up against him once. Nothing so flogged, Chengren took his precious meteorite dagger, the minion would like it back. But the king forbade it, because if someone realized how much this dagger was worth and accepted it as a bet, he would be unrealistically lucky. But he wanted to teach Chengren a lesson by ordering his servant to leave his son without a penny for a whole year, so that he would understand to whom he owed his rich life. The servant remembered to this day that no matter what Chengren did, the king never left him without money. The fourth master left the residence and was still thinking about everything they had talked about. He didn't notice the servant waiting for him until Chang Sam turned to him and asked if he had gotten a lot from his father. The young master's legs gave out and he fell right on his butt, frightening his already frightened servant. The fourth master was sitting there trembling and holding his heart, saying that since today he hadn't worried for a long time. The next day, while cleaning the yard, Chang Sam could not stop yawning because he must have been up all night. Soon he saw that his young master was walking back and forth, obviously thinking about something or even planning something. The servant could not stand it and asked why the master had been walking back and forth all morning, and in response, he saw Chengren. He was examining his feet in detail and still thinking about something, while his servant was wondering if his master had stepped in shit. Standing up, he explained to the inquisitive servant that he was not looking at his shoes, but at his feet. Chen Sam still did not understand what was wrong with his young master's feet. Chengren found his servant's reaction very funny because he did not know the whole story of his history. That in his past life, his fourth master limped for 50 years, and he cannot understand how difficult it was. Having finished his thoughts, Chen Ren asked Chang Sam what day it was, and he replied that it was the 12th day of the 10th month. Together they looked up to the mountain, and the young master said that the autumn sky was so clear today, and the servant added that he loved this weather of all seasons. Li Chengren turned to his servant and suggested a walk. Chang asked if he was going to gamble again. He better watch his spending, because he won't be seeing any money in the near future. The servant explained that they were ordered to feed him 3 times a day but not to give him any money, adding that the order came from the king of the agency himself. A little upset, Chen Ren asked if his father had decided to punish him for his disobedience. Chang Sam asked what he planned to do next. Cheng Ren mockingly asked him if he really thought that such a young owner without money would starve to death. Chang said that he meant in the future. Perhaps he is meddling in his own business, but he won't be able to do so for long. Li Chengren told him that he would be starting work very soon. The stunned servant could not believe his ears and even asked if he was serious. The young master said that Chang Sam was right to live like this forever, and the servant even asked him what he was going to do. With full confidence, the 4th master replied that he was going to become an escort warrior. The shocked servant explained that in order to become an escort warrior in their agency, you need to be a martial arts master of at least the 2nd level. Leaning down to his ear, Chan Sam said that he did not have such skills, and in truth, under certain circumstances, a servant could overcome his young master. Chen Ren argued that the warriors in the Heavenly Dragon did not need to know martial arts, as if he had not heard of the Yuren warriors. Yuren is a rank assigned to people who have passed the provincial exam. For a very long time, the agency has been accepting Yurens into its ranks as if to help poor scholars. But since they could not fight, they were hardly ever used in convoys, but the Jurens kept books or taught illiterate porters. However, if they were lucky enough to pass the capital's exam and get appointed to the prefecture, they became a reliable support for the agency. Stunned, Chang Sam asked his young master if he was really going to take the exam. Li Chengren replied that he was as serious as ever in his words, and that he would take the exam today. Arriving at the Hangzhou government building, the young master and his servant were talking to each other about how many people had come to the exam today. Out of the corner of his ear, Li Chenren heard women's voices discussing someone with very pale skin as if it were white jade. The girls laughed amongst themselves and continued to discuss how the 4th master of the agency turned out to be. He turned to Chan Sam and asked why the girls were looking at him so strangely, and he replied that the owner always attracted the attention of different girls. While the 4th master was thinking about how great it would be to be attractive now, his servant asked him if he was really ready to take the exam. Without remorse or hesitation, the youngest master replies that of course he will take the exam because he is going to take it. He was once hired as a porter with a limp leg because he could read and write, and was recommended by the accountant, Limp Son, so he began copying books. And most of the things he copied were not even books or even posters. Namely, the answers of those who have already passed the imperial exams with the best results. And of course, he still remembered every answer to every question while the master was thinking about the exam, and the servant was wondering why he was so confident. The doors of the board building opened, and a man came out and announced that all those who came to the exam could go through. Li Shengren took the tube from his servant and ordered him not to go anywhere because he would return to him very soon. The man who had invited everyone to the exam told the guards that it looked like everyone had already passed, so they could close the door. A man's voice was heard in the distance, begging them to stop and wait for him because he was also in a hurry to get to the exam. The exam began, and everyone was bent over their sheets and answering the questions diligently. Shenren didn't want to copy the best students word for word. Since he already knew the topic of the exam in advance, it wouldn't be fair. He wanted his own thoughts to be evaluated. His attention was drawn to a guy who was visibly worried that he had brought an iron feather instead of a bone. The 4th master asked the boy if he had brought the same feather that soldiers use to stick into acupuncture points. Taking pity on the young man, Li Chengren gave him his bone and thus helped him out of an unpleasant situation. He thanked him and promised to repay his kindness, to which Chen Ren laughed and said that he would treat him to noodles one day. But suddenly the young master's gaze became serious and concentrated, and he looked intently at the boy's face. He thought that if not for this wart on his nose, he would have been very handsome. Chang Sam was waiting for his young master and finally saw that Chen Ren was finished and heading to him, so he asked if he had done it so quickly. The young master replied that if you sit longer, it will dawn on you, and you will be able to answer something you have never known before. After taking the tube from his master, Chan Sam offered to leave, but the young master stopped him. The exam was over and the gates opened, Everyone started to leave the building discussing the exam with each other, and only one guy left alone. He was pulled out of his thoughts by an unexpected question from the fourth master, who asked him if he had done well in the exam. The boy bowed and handed over the bone, and thanked him for helping him out so much Li Chen-ren was amused and took it back. They continued to stand in silence, and the fourth master held his chin thoughtfully. The guy was about to leave when he heard in his direction that if he was not busy and fate brought them together, maybe they could go out for a bite to eat. The young man said he was sorry, but he had an appointment, so some other time. The boy left, leaving the fourth master and his servant with each other in a bit of confusion. Chen-ren was upset because he had expected to eat noodles at his expense. Chan-sam asked if they had met before and heard that they had met at an exam. He said that the guy brought an iron pen to the exam, and if he couldn't tell the difference between a pen and a bone, he probably doesn't use them often and is at least somewhat successful. Chan-sam decided to tease the owner, saying that not only did the boy look like such a loser, but the young owner also got a little spanking. The servant handed the coin to the fourth master, attracting his attention. He said that since his expenses were cut, he could share his salary with him. Chan-sam noticed that it was cool outside and invited his host to a bowl of hot and tasty noodles, a proposal that Chen-ren liked. Upon entering the restaurant, they discussed among themselves that the best noodles in Hangzhou are served here at a restaurant in Baekgasen. The waiter greeted them and asked Li Chen-ren if the ground floor was busy, and he said that it was because there were a lot of people here because of the exam. They were about to go upstairs when the waiter stopped them and warned them that the second floor was also occupied. The waiter leaned over his ear and told him that the owner, Li Ben-ren, and his friends had taken over the entire third floor of the restaurant, so ordinary customers were eating on the first floor. Zhang Ryong asked if Cho Yongyong was with them, and when he heard the answer, he turned around and called Jiang Sam with him, hurrying away. But on the way out of the restaurant, he was stopped by the commander of the Iron Tower escort soldiers, who said that the third master had ordered them to bring him to him. When they got to the third floor, they saw that the wine was flowing like a river, and there was no limit to their merriment, so they followed the commander right up to the table. Chen-ren froze in his tracks when he saw one of the girls sitting at the table. She was dressed quite richly and looked quite beautiful and gentle. Even without looking at all those present, he stood there and could not take his eyes off her. He thought that she was one of the most beautiful women in Hangzhou, because of whom Li Chengren committed suicide, and it seems that she is the same Cho Yongyong. The third master, Li Chengren's older brother Li Ben-ren, asked if he would say hello to his older brother. The fourth master looked at everyone present, and they, in turn, looked at him in a mute pause. Li Chengren greeted his brother and said that he had just been informed that he and his friends were vacationing here, and he had to go up to see them himself. Ben-ren didn't believe him, and said that he thought it wasn't quite true that the Iron Tower had caught him, and brought him in when he wanted to sneak out, without saying hello. Li Chengren denied his words, and thought to himself that his brother was not such a fool, even if he was a rare bastard. A beautiful girl greeted him and said hello to him. "Long time no see, brother," but it sounded more like a mockery. The young master was taken aback and did not know what to say, but Li Ben-ren reminded him that in such cases, it is customary to greet, not to remain silent. Li Zhang-ryong only now realized that Cho Yon-young was not the cute girl he had seen when he walked in. And this girl, who was sitting on his brother's right hand and mocking him, he thought about what he had heard about her incredible beauty. But in his opinion, the title of Hangzhou's first beauty was more suitable for this girl. When he realized who was who, he cleared his throat and was about to say something. He was interrupted by his older brother, who slammed his fist on the table and called him a fool, thus attracting the attention of everyone at the table. Doesn't his brother remember that Yon is going to be his wife, and that Chen-ren should treat her with respect as well? Chen-sam and Chen-ren stood there and did not understand why the third master began to shout and get angry out of the blue. My younger brother bowed to him so as not to anger him even more, and apologized for my shameful behavior. But Ben-ren continued to humiliate him by saying that his brother was a failure who had left martial arts and training for gambling houses and bars. Chen-ren listened to him say that he would remain a failure, that he even regretted that they were related to each other. But suddenly he realized that his brother was showing off in front of his fiancée, because he was not as handsome as his younger brother. That's why he humiliated him in front of Yon to make himself look more respectable and better in her eyes. Are all the sons of the heavenly dragon as miserable as Ben-ren? In any case, it's time for him to say goodbye to them. But he was stopped by a beautiful girl who had previously been sitting with her back to him, who who invited him to join them for a meal. It was Jim Gyeongbong, whom he did not notice at all against the background of the other girls and his brother's humiliation. The girl's proposal was supported by Yeon Yeon, who said that her brother was probably hungry, so let him sit down and eat, thus surprising his fiancée. Jim Gyeongbong asked if Ben Ren was okay with this, because most of the people at the table supported the girl and also invited him to eat, noticing that the young master kept his eyes on the food. The men asked Chen Ren where he had been when they were having lunch together, and someone laughed that he had obviously been in brothels. Ben Ren was only amused that his brother was being publicly ridiculed, and Yeon Yeon looked down in shame. His former reputation was constantly ridiculed, which greatly disturbed the new Lee Jong-un. Everyone at the table was laughing, but not that beautiful girl who was looking at him intently as if sympathizing with him. Ben Ren turned to his brother again, since everyone was asking him to the table and his younger brother was so hungry. His brother threw a plate in front of him and said that he could eat the leftovers, humiliating him even more. But Lee Chung-ren was not an easy man, so he took the plate and said that he would gladly accept his offer. After ordering Chang Sam to find a seat and eat, he began to look around for a place to sit. I found a seat near Jim Gyeongbong, right in front of a girl who clearly did not expect the young master to show such courage. Lee Chung-ren began to eat his food with a smile in the company of beautiful ladies. Now he was the center of attention, not only of women, but also of men. His brother watched him sitting at his desk with undisguised displeasure. The young master listened to various conversations about the agency's internal affairs and even heard Confucius being quoted. Ben Ren was asked how he would solve various problems, such as how to stop hunger caused by natural disasters. Chen Ren noticed that they were discussing the topic of today's exam, how to deal with the rise in crime caused by the famine in northern China. He looked at the two men who were actively participating in the discussion. Apparently, they were also taking today's exam. Jim Gyeongbong leaned over him with interest and asked what he had to say about it. Lee Chung-ren indifferently told her that he did not know anything about this, and she asked him not to be shy and share his thoughts with them. Ben Ren supported her because he also wanted to hear what he had to say, because as a child, Chen Ren had studied this at least a little. Well, if they decide to ridicule him again, it is the young master's own fault. He decided to speak his mind. The fact that they recently discussed Sun Tzu's quotes did not actually belong to him, but to Han Fei. No one expected the young master to know even who said these quotes, let alone their meaning. This amused and made Ben Ren laugh, and he called his words nonsense. Chen Ren told his brother that he had never been taught, and if he didn't believe it, he could ask those who had been studying it all their lives by pouring them a drink. By the way, the words about first getting rid of the source of chaos belonged to Mo Tzu, not Han Fei. And it was not Confucius himself who wrote about the laws. He merely quoted lines from Zhuo Zhuan, whose reasoning shocked absolutely everyone present. Cho Yun-young was the most shocked because she knew him the closest, and she couldn't figure out if this was the Lee Jong-ryong she knew. He added that, in addition to the 9 classics, there are other authors worthy of attention. Lee Chung-ren slammed his hand on the table and shouted that what they were quoting was not enough to pass the exam. The men who were taking today's exam clearly became nervous after the 4th master's words. Ben Ren couldn't believe that he was facing his demented brother, wondering how this fool could know everything. In the silence, I heard a small laugh that grew into a real laugh. The girl was clearly amused by this situation. Her laugh was as sweet as she was, and after laughing, she apologized and said she just couldn't help herself. Lee Chung-ren was surprised by her reaction, and even more stunned by the fact that she is laughing at them, not at the young master, and that they all have their heads down and don't say a word to her. It is probably her that Lee Ben Ren and his cronies have been trying to impress all this time. Chen Ren had been captivated by her beauty from the very beginning, and now he was watching her laugh so sincerely and sweetly. But suddenly, looking at her face, he saw a wart mark on her nose. He thought that it was no accident that she seemed so familiar to him. That's who he saw that day at the exam, and the girl asked him if they had met before. She apologized for not introducing herself earlier. Her name is Namgun Soso, and she is the granddaughter of Namgun Yun Yen, the lightning sword, who is now the head of the Namgun clan. The Namgong is the largest military clan ruling all of northern Yangzhou. So that's the meeting she was talking about, and he thought that Soso was just a strange student, but she was from the Namgun clan, just disguised to pass the exam. The chance to befriend the granddaughter of the clan head is a great fortune in the clan. There are 2 heirs, Namgun Soso and her older brother known for his skillful swordplay. Therefore, this dinner is the only opportunity for Li Binren to enlist her support, as it will give him a great opportunity to defeat his brothers in the struggle for power. In other words, he bowed and introduced himself to the best ally he could find, to which Namgun Soso said that she knew him and that he was known in all the bars in Hangzhou. He told her that the gossip about him was very exaggerated, to which Soso replied that there is no smoke without fire. Li Chengren replied that even a small fire can produce a large column of smoke, and Namgun Soso said that fire can consume a mountain, but will eventually go out. After finishing his pleasantries, Soso reminded the young master that he had not said what he thought about the previous topic. She told him that it is always easier to criticize others than to open up your thoughts to everyone, especially when there is no right answer, and she insisted that he answer. Li Chengren did not refuse and said that in such a situation, he would not touch the criminals. He was asked about it, and he says so. Chen Ren explained that northern China specializes in selling cotton, so crime increases every winter. This means that if they are left untouched while conditions improve, bandits and former farmers will simply return home. Namgun Soso was clearly disappointed with such a short answer, and Chen Ren continued. He would have raised taxes on landowners, large traders, and statist agencies. She asked where he was going with this, as in her opinion, they are the ones who suffer the most from bandit raids. This is because, first of all, landowners pay peasants little, and in years of poor harvest, they starve and are forced to become bandits. Secondly, cotton, which farmers receive a pittance for, is bought by large traders and then sold at 3 times the price. And thirdly, the more bandits in the neighborhood, the more work for the agencies, so they earn and prosper. And if you equalize their salaries and the peasants, the choice is obvious. Now Namgun Soso sat there with her mouth wide open, not expecting that the fourth master, about whom there were various rumors, could think so broadly. She asked him what he would spend the money from the increased taxes on, and he said that he would fill the country's warehouses so that the real thugs in politics could enrich themselves. But what good is it to the peasants if it only helps politicians to fill their pockets? And the point is that then some honest officials will get the rest of the money. Soso told him that such irrational nonsense would never work in real life. Li Chengren explained to her that this is the essence of the whole policy. Cho Yan-young also sat with her mouth open, wondering if he had always been so smart. Namgun Soso said that the examiners would definitely like his answer, and bowed and thanked him for such an interesting conversation. And if the opportunity arises, she would like to talk to him again. The fourth master reciprocated. Jim Gyumbong remarked that Chen Ren was simply stunning. Ben Ren is as shocked as the others, but the shock quickly turned to anger, because he wanted to humiliate him in front of Yan Yan, and it turned out the other way around, and he will not tolerate this. He said it was too noisy, and suggested we go for a drink at another place, and of course, everyone supported this idea at his expense. He is incredibly dangerous, Chen Ren thought, when his brother asked all his guests to wait downstairs. And he asked his younger brother to stay. He wanted to discuss something with him in private. Ben Ren sat him down across from him and started asking him various questions, one of which was whether his younger brother had eaten something wrong. Chen Ren shrugged his shoulders and said that he had eaten some scraps from the table, to which his brother called him an animal. His words made the third master angry, and he shouted, "Does he really think he's a fool?" His younger brother asked him to speak more politely, but his brother shut him up, because everyone in Hangzhou knows that the fourth master is a fool. The agency's heavenly dragon tried to drown himself in a lake. After such a disgrace, he should stay home and keep his nose to the grindstone. And he goes around shaming their entire family, to which Chen Ren denied that his brother had actually invited him here. Ben Ren was furious at the word brother and said that his mother was a miserable maid. How dare he call him his brother? Chen Ren was not ready to tolerate such an accusation, but he would not allow his mother to be humiliated either. His brother stood up and began to roll up his sleeves, ready to take out his anger on his younger brother. Chen Ren asked if he was going to beat him, and Ben Ren asked if he was afraid of him. But Chen Ren decided to attack first, saying that everyone in Hangzhou knew, except the third master of course, that his brother Ben Ren is the son of an ordinary concubine. At these words, he became furiously angry, and he flew at his brother, preparing to strike. Chen Ren recognized the explosive fist technique, a secret technique of the Heavenly Dragon Agency, and if he gets hit, he will not live. He thought it was over because he could not dodge the blow, and Ben Ren's fist was almost in his face. But the young master noticed that his brother's fist began to move strangely and slowly toward him. He got to his feet and moved to the side, dodging his brother's blows. His brother was still moving too slowly and shouting at him for daring to dodge his blows, and the young master was able to avoid being hit. This went on for some time. Benren tried to strike with requests to strike at least once, and his younger brother mocked him for being slow. Li Qinren could not understand what was happening. He was not sure if his brother had slowed down or if he himself had sped up. If this continues, he will be able to strike back. And now, Chenren's hand was already covering his brother's face with one powerful blow. As they moved away from each other, the young master held his hand and thought that he might have overreacted a bit. He apologized and asked how his brother was feeling, who was holding his badly broken nose and calling his brother an animal. With renewed vigor, Benren launched another attack, this time with plans to end his younger brother's life. He was using a takedown technique and was still slow, but his punches were too much, so his younger brother decided to give in to him. It was better to do it now than when he finally became angry and lost his temper. Suddenly, Li Chengren saw a plate of fried beans on the table. With a sudden movement, he picked up a plate from the table and threw beans at his brother. The agency's third foreman lost his balance and slipped on them, falling with great force. Nam Gun Soso and Jim Gumbong, who were waiting for Ben Ren outside, heard someone screaming from the third floor of the restaurant. Chan Sam heard the men discussing that Ben Ren had once again fought someone, and that the other man knew full well that he was fighting his master. Meanwhile, the young master was wondering how he had managed to defeat his brother in such a way, since everything had not gone as he had expected. When he stepped away from the fight, he looked at his hands, and still could not understand what kind of superpower helped him overcome his brother. Ben Ren is practically a first-rate fighter, but he clearly saw every one of his blows as possible because Li Qingren had never studied martial arts. But while he was thinking, his brother came to and was still as angry as ever, calling Chen Ren a brute again. Not noticing that his friends had returned to the restaurant, he continued to attack and threaten his younger brother. He climbed on top of him and shouted that how could he even dare to hit him? Does he think he is the smartest and can outsmart him so easily? He was shouting that he was not a resident, and sitting on top of him, he was hitting Chen Ren hard in the face. Unable to stand this action, Namgun Soso decided to intervene, asking Ben Ren what he was doing. After he stopped beating his brother, he turned to her and said that Lady Namgun had misunderstood everything. She said that she thought that decent people would gather here, so she came here, but to tell the truth, she is very disappointed. Because at first, Ben Ren publicly humiliated his brother like a child, and now he is beating him as if he wants to keep him alive. She quoted the great sages of the past as saying that one should not take out one's anger even on a dog when having guests over. Looking at him seriously, she asked him directly if, under such circumstances, she was not considered a guest. In the end, she said that it doesn't matter if it's a family dispute between them or a girl, they should solve it alone, because then there's no need to take her away from her work. Returning to the entrance, she said that she was leaving and Ben Ren tried to stop her, justifying her behavior, and the girl was already heading for the exit. Chen Ren was lying on the floor beaten, and glad that this senseless fight was over. Finally, a worried Chan Sam ran up to him, thinking that his master had already died. He felt sorry for his master, saying that he was sorry that the third master had beaten him so badly, and that Chen Ren was not so easy to defeat. He quickly stood up and asked Chan Sam if he was sure he hadn't studied any martial arts, to which he said that he had studied, but only a little, and quickly dropped it. He was 12 years old at the time, and his teacher said that he was not capable of anything. It was already clear to him that he had no martial arts skills at all. Then where could he learn how to do that? Chen Ren caught the flies that were circling him with one quick movement. Opening his palm, he showed the flies to Chang Sam, who looked at them in surprise and could not understand where he had learned this and how it was possible. He jokingly asked his young master when he managed to learn the secret technique of fly catching. Chen Ren noticed that Chang Sam even spoke slowly, as if the flow of time itself had slowed down. Suddenly, something started to happen to him. He fell to his knees and held his stomach, and the embarrassed servant nervously asked if he was okay, not knowing how to help. His master held his chest as if it was about to explode. Chen Ren asked him to quickly bring him water. Chung Sam ran to the table and grabbed a pitcher of cold water and brought it to his young master. But when his master drained the mug of water in almost one gulp, the servant clearly did not expect it. Having finished the water, Chen Ren ordered him to bring more water immediately, and the servant said that he would go downstairs and fetch it. Chen Ren was still clutching his chest and couldn't understand why he felt as if a fire was burning inside him. Suddenly, everything he felt inside began to burst out of him. He really began to burn, and after getting rid of his burning clothes, he tried not to panic and to understand what was happening to him. When his chest stopped burning, he looked down at it and saw something unusual, some letters right on the side of his heart. But as soon as he tried to look at it, it suddenly disappeared, as if it had been absorbed into his body. Chen Ren began to realize that this was the same text, from a bamboo scroll that was with him on the very day he passed away. He was absolutely sure that the ancient talisman he had burned with his own hands was now imprinted on his body, and that it was the one that was slowing down time around him. Meanwhile, Chan Sam returned with fresh water and saw that something had obviously happened to his master. He picked up his clothes from the floor and asked how he could burn his clothes out of the blue. But Chen Ren smiled and said that he was lucky, as they say that good eyesight is half the battlefield success, and he now has perfect eyesight. Chang Sam reminded the young master that tomorrow was the 15th. The fourth master did not understand what he was getting at, so Chan Sam explained that on the 15th of each place, the king of the agency hosts a dinner for his sons. The first foreman just returned from an assignment yesterday, and it's been a long time since they've all been together at the same table. Li Cheng-ren asked him if they really had dinner with his father every month, and the servant could not understand what had surprised him so much. The head of the Heavenly Dragon Agency started the evening with his sons. He was sitting at the head of the table, with maids standing behind him, and his children, the respected masters of the agency, scattered in other places. The first eldest son and first master of the Heavenly Dragon Agency, Li Gab-ren. The second son and master of the Heavenly Dragon Agency, Li Yol-ren. The third son and master of the Heavenly Dragon Agency, Li Ben-ren. Li Cheng-ren was rather uncomfortable in such a family setting and hoped to at least enjoy a meal this evening. He felt like he was sitting among wolves with a tiger at his head, so he was nervous and could hardly eat properly. He looked at Li Ben-ren, who for some reason was completely out of sorts, and sighed, as if he were very unwell. Zhang Riong recalled Jiang Sam's words that his marriage to Cho Yeon-young was postponed for a while, and it all became clear why he was so sad. Li's eldest brother, Gab-ren, banged on the table and said he had thought long and hard and made a decision. It's time to bring Li Zhongryong to work in their agency because this year he turns 22, and it's time for him to get down to business. Li Cheng-ren became even more nervous at this statement, wondering why his brother had become so friendly to him. Li Yol-ryong asked his older brother that he was talking as if he was the only one in the agencies who was busy with business, and that he was not ashamed of his father. Li Yol-ren reminded him that he had never cared for Chen Ren before, and why such a sudden change had come about. Li Gab-ren explained that he had recently heard that something had happened to his youngest brother, so he, as the older brother, decided that he had to pay more attention to him. Yol-ren said that he also planned to take care of his studies, reminding his brother that his job came first, so let it stay that way. Li Zhongsang, observing his son's argument, concluded that most people say that sudden changes are for evil, not good. He slammed his hand on the table, and all conversation stopped at once, rising from the table. The head of the agency called the captain of the guards and asked why there was so much noise outside. The captain reported to the king that the magistrate from Hangzhou had arrived with the army and insisted on an audience with him. Li Zhongsang was not expecting any visitors today, so he asked again if the magistrate had come to see him. For some reason, the news of the master's arrival intrigued and excited Li Chen-ren. It seems that not only he, but also Li Ben-ren was concerned about this, because he became noticeably more animated after the news. Li Gab-ren asked him if he was so worried because he had done something wrong again, and Ben-ren said that he had actually taken a state exam 3 days ago. Lists of those who passed the exam have already been posted in all districts, but the top 3 scorers are personally informed by board members. Ben-ren informed everyone that this year he also took the state exam. Li Cheng-ren thought that while he was flaunting himself in front of him in the restaurant, he had really passed the exam. Officials personally hand over the results to the top 3. This is true, but usually the magistrate does not interfere in such cases. Li Gab-ren asked why the magistrate would meet with his father in person, and Ben-ren said that he wanted to impress his father. After all, 7 out of 10 officials were there. They obey his father, to which the head of the agency said enough talk, and he got up from the table and decided to go to the master and find out everything in person. The head of the agency and his craftsmen went outside to meet with the magistrate. Li Cheng-ren walked behind everyone, looking in front of him and visibly nervous. In front of them stood Magistrate Wang Ying-tak, who bowed and said that he had not seen Lee Jong-sang for a long time and asked how he was doing. The head of the agency greeted the magistrate, saying that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, but he would like to know the reason why he came here at such a late hour. The magistrate asked if he shouldn't have come. Lee Jong-sang objected, explaining that he was always welcome here, and they were surprised that despite his crazy schedule, he came to them without even warning them. The servants said that the honorable magistrate wanted to see the head of the agency in person. The magistrate said that it seems there was a small misunderstanding. Of course, he would have liked to greet him individually, but he came on another occasion. According to the laws of their country, he came to hand over the exam results. At one point, everyone looked at Ben Ren and could not believe that he was able to pass the exam and get into the top 3. He couldn't wait for the result to be announced so that he could finally earn recognition from his father. Lee Jong-sang asked Magistrate Wang In-taik whom he had come to see, and he replied that of course he had come to see his son. As everyone could already understand, 3 days ago, a state exam was held in Hangzhou, and one of his sons showed the best result, so according to tradition. He came to inform him about it, which is usually done by his assistants, and since he knows the family, he decided to come personally to show respect. The magistrate turned his head over his shoulder and ordered his soldiers to get to work immediately. They quickly and organizedly laid out a sheet on which to set up a small table. The magistrate personally put a mug of wine on the table, which meant that the preparations for the ceremony were almost over. Without waiting for the invitation, Li Ben-ren went forward and sat down opposite the master in the scoring of the results. He was already mentally enjoying his victory, dreaming that his words would be taken into account more. In addition, in this scenario, wedding negotiations with Cho Yon-yon will finally resume, which made the third master very happy. The ceremony began with the best result at the last provincial exam by Lee Jong-sang's fourth son, Lee Jong-ryong. Everyone was shocked by this news, so everyone immediately began whispering and discussing, with all their attention focused on Chen Ren. He stood proudly, despite the criticism and discussions. The fourth master was no longer afraid of anyone or anything. Just think. The best student from their agency has never been the case before. Usually the best students were always students of some famous academies. It was hard to believe that none other than the fourth master could have done it, given his reputation. Li Ben-ren could not accept and come to terms with the fact that his younger brother had beaten him in the state exam. He shouted to the magistrate that it was clearly a mistake, that he had read his name wrong. I asked them to double-check it, and it should have said Li Ben-ren, because Li Chen-ren did not pass the exam. So how could he have shown the best result? It looks like there was another misunderstanding since he is still sitting in his place. The magistrate asked if he was the same Li Cheng-ren, and he replied that he was. Then he was given a scroll confirming his results. Li Cheng-ren said that he honorably accepts His Majesty's most majestic edict. Congratulations came from everywhere, and he thought that the former carrier had finally gotten a chance to become a soldier or work in management. People showed different reactions to this news, some joy, some anger, but only Chang Sam was so sincerely happy for his young master. Chen Ren was so happy that he was ready to run out into the field and just shout until he was hoarse. On the 20th of this month, Li Cheng-ren is to report to the Hangzhou government building to receive a badge of 50 rolls of silk and a travel pass. Suddenly, a tall, dark figure loomed over Magistrate Wang Ying-tak. It was Li Jong-sang, and the atmosphere between them was very tense, so he called Wang In-taik to talk in private. After hospitably pouring him a drink, the head of the agency asked the master if it was a joke, and he did not understand what he was asking him about. He slammed on the table with all his might, so that the magistrate was speechless and seriously frightened. The head of the agency shouted that he didn't think he knew that through this scheme they were using the children of the rich as their pawns. He said that such tricks would not work on him, and the magistrate explained that there must have been some big misunderstanding. Does he really want to say that Li Chen-ren got the best result on his own? It even sounds ridiculous. We should fire him so that he can finally get his head straight. The magistrate thought that it was necessary to choose the right words, otherwise he would not only lose his job, but also his head. He hoped to console him with this news, so he came in person and swore that he had not rigged the results to get his money. It was the truth, and even if he wanted to do that, he would have chosen his third son, which would not have been so suspicious, is it not obvious? Li Jong-sang even thought about his words because they sounded sincere and true. In his turn, to confirm his words, the magistrate took out an envelope and handed it to the head of the agency so that he could see everything with his own eyes. He brought this envelope just in case because he anticipated that he would not believe it so easily. He opened the envelope and saw that it was his fourth son's answers. This could not be so. There was a work with deep and rich content, as well as observations as if gained from deep experience, and it was all so well arranged. The head of the agency could not believe that his son could have written all this. He even asked if it was him who wrote it, and he felt that it was amazing. He had never seen such a perfect answer before. How could his son, a fool, write something like that? Since childhood, he had always been bad at school. He was bad in battle, no matter how much he was taught, but it was useless. He could not just take his child and leave him. He shouted Li Chengren had really met the Dragon King when he jumped into the Eastern Lake, probably meaning that he had gained strength and luck. Since his third son was among the top 200, they will both be able to take the exam in the capital in a month, and it is unlikely that they will have any problems with it. Ben Ren was able to become the best among those 200 only thanks to his mother, and Chen Ren is unlikely to repeat his success in the capital's exam. However, if he succeeds there, then it will be a good option for him to become a state official. This may be his only chance to succeed in life, as he has neither talent for martial arts nor support from his mother. The head of the agency apologized for disrespecting him, even though he had traveled a long way to tell them the good news. The magistrate understood why he reacted in such a way, and the head of the agency asked how widely the results would be announced. Usually about 100 posters are placed. But Li Zhongsang was not satisfied with this, and it was evident in his face. But for the first time in 20 years, the best examiner was chosen unanimously, so it was decided to expand the number of posters to 1,000. Every 10th constable will be assigned to hang them in Hangzhou, as well as in Suzhou and Yangzhou and other neighboring cities. The head of the agency was now laughing and saying that 1,000 posters was too much to ask, and he was very grateful for his generosity. While the magistrate was thinking about how long it would take to write 1,000 posters and put them up, the head of the agency put a large box in front of him. The magistrate pulled it closer to him and asked what it was for, to which the head of the agency told him to just open it and then he would understand. Upon opening the box, Wang Yingtak's face lengthened and shone. There were many large golden boats in the box, and the magistrate did not immediately understand why Li Zhongsang was giving them to him. But he explained that they would probably need a lot of money to prepare and deliver such a large volume of posters. All this trouble because of his younger son would be right if he took over the embezzlement, and there was even more to it so that there would be no problems with lack of funds. The magistrate will use these funds to good effect. Today's table was empty, said Li Zhongsang, and next time a fancy table will be prepared for him. The head of the agency was very generous today, and the magistrate did not regret coming to inform him and his sons in person. Having finished the conversation, they said goodbye on a good note, and the magistrate returned not empty-handed, thinking that today he had been lucky. The next day, Li Ben Ren was visited by his cheerful friends, and it felt as if they had almost burst through the gate. But the third master was always happy to see them, waving to them and inviting them to come in as soon as possible. They came to congratulate him as soon as they learned that he had passed the state exam. They thought that Ben Ren was only good at martial arts, but it turned out that he was a genius in his studies as well. These words were incredibly flattering to Ben Ren's ego. His first group of friends was soon joined by another group of friends, all of whom were welcome to join the conversation. Shan Sam said that it was ridiculous, because his younger brother took first place and did not hear a single congratulation, and he barely passed, and half the village came to congratulate him. Shouldn't he be ashamed of himself? If he were him, he would have hung a sign saying, "No visitors allowed" at the main gate, and Chen Ren didn't care much. He was thinking about how he had noticed several properties of his ability to slow down time under intense tension during a few days of practice. The first is that it activates itself, and the second property is that he cannot maintain it for longer than 10 breaths. And the third was that his own movements were also slowing down. So the only thing he can do now is to closely monitor his opponent's movements. But thinking 3 steps ahead on how to cope with him is all I've learned so far, even though he was reborn and passed the state exam with flying colors. But without combat skills, history can repeat itself again, and he needs to find a martial art that will help him accelerate his movements in his new body. Cheng Sam said that there was nothing to envy. Li Chengren returned to him from his thoughts and could not understand what he was talking about. He said about Ben Ren that his popularity was fake because the third master's mother, Madame Chun Hua, donated bones and ink to the Yedan Academy. This whole company is here only because of this, and Li Chengren could not care less. Chan Sam said he could relax his supervision a little bit if he was upset. They could go to the red light district to lift his spirits. He guarantees that thousands of prostitutes and hired killers, even brothel guards, will welcome him, which makes the young master laugh. He told the servant to forget about it and to bring him some sandbags, which the soldiers use for training. The young master told him that he would hang them on himself and run, but Chan Sam still did not understand why he was doing this. Li Chengren turned to him and proudly said that he had told him that he was going to become a great warrior. Chan himself was running fast and shouting that it was all good that his young master wanted to become a warrior and why he should run with him. Chengren asked him if he did not know that the master and the servant were one in everything, and he stopped, unable to run any further, even though they had not yet run halfway. The servant cried that he didn't care, that he couldn't continue running anymore, and the young master snapped and said that in that case, he would run himself. Chan Sam only said that they would meet soon, and I thought that he had been acting strangely in recent days like a completely different person. It was the 20th of this month, and they came to the government office in Hangzhou. Li Chengren was given a nameplate and a travel pass to prove that he had passed the state exam, and he thanked the magistrate for it. And 50 more rolls of the highest quality silk, which are given only to the best and brightest people in Hangzhou. Chengren punched his palm and said that he was very grateful for such a high award. Chang Sam was very proud of his master and even shed a few tears. After the ceremony, he took the rolls of silk to the market and put them up for sale. He was offered 15 silver coins for them, which sounded humiliating. They continued to bargain, and the young master was not mistaken and said that for 20 silver pieces he could take his goods. Having earned the money, the young master wondered where he could spend it, and Chang Sam was worried that he had exchanged a gift from the state for entertainment. But the young master assured him that he shouldn't worry about the money, they would spend it together. First, he wanted something to eat because he was hungry. The first thing they did was go to a restaurant and eat until they were full. Chengren leaned back to rest. Chan Sam said that if he was full, he would take the rest of his portion for himself. Then they went to walk around the market when a merchant called out to them, inviting them to look at his shop where he had clothes made of high-quality silk at a low price. Chengren was interested in one of the cloaks in his shop, so he looked at it carefully, and his servant did not understand why he wanted it at all. But as it turned out, he chose this cloak for Chang Sam, saying that the servant would look like a young master if he wore it, and he thought he did not deserve to wear it. But Chengren didn't even think about backing down despite the servant's refusal. He still bought him a new high-quality cloak in honor of the day he passed the exam. Chan Sam suddenly thought that his young master must have been upset that no one had come to congratulate him, so he was being so generous to him now. Walking along the waterfront, they came across a local old beggar, sitting and asking for alms from passers-by. Suddenly, 2 silver coins fell into the old beggar's empty bowl. Chengren said that he had spent the last couple of coins on a good cause. Chan Sam yelled at him that they weren't even coppers. Why give so much to a beggar? But it was just a routine ritual that accompanying carriers perform before each mission, symbolizing the dumping of one's own bad luck on a beggar in order to return unharmed. 2 silver pieces are incomparable to life. Chan Sam asked if he was really going to join the escort. But what about the capital exam? He could concentrate on his studies and not take assignments right away. But Li Chengren was fixated on participating in the sorting ceremony that would take place tonight, and he was thinking of a plan to get there. At the ceremony, people sort the goods that have arrived during the day by their type and purpose, and upon its completion, they are distributed to the respective delivery managers. Chan Sam asked if the ceremony was not intended for bosses and higher officials, and the young master replied that this was why he was thinking about how to get there. The servant suggested that he simply ask the king of the agency to help with this, and if it were that easy, his father would grumble about preparing for the exam just like him. Isn't Chengren going to warn him that going on a mission is a deception? And he said he would think about it when the time comes. Chan Sam noticed that now it really seems that he is a different person, because before he used to tremble at the mere mention of the king of the agency. Chengren told him to try to burn alive or drown after that. He would not be afraid of anything, so he simply agreed, because it would be worse for him if he did not. The servant asked why he had to take part in the ceremony, since the task could be done without it, and the young master had his own motives. If he is right, all the goods will be stolen, and all the support will be destroyed by martial arts masters almost at the very beginning. The Heavenly Dragon Agency will suffer heavy losses, and its king and chief of escort will send a team to organize a cleanup. They will succeed in taking revenge, and those who are left lying on the battlefield will never return to their homes. Li Chengren recalled how in the past, these people had gone through fire and water with them. Even if when they made fun of him because of his limp, they were his friends who could be relied on. He set himself the goal of saving them from such a fate, no matter what it took. His participation in the sorting ceremony is necessary to disrupt this delivery at all costs. As the young master and his servant approached the area where the sorting ceremony would take place, they saw something they had not expected. A boy hiding behind the wall of the building was looking at the open door with great interest. The boy turned out to be a very familiar-looking man, and Li Chengren immediately realized who it was that was peeping in. Inside the room, there were many people trying to rein in their horses, discussing among themselves that they had to move because the king of the agency would soon arrive. The boy muttered under his breath that Chengren had said he was the fourth master of the Heavenly Dragon Agency. When he suddenly appeared in front of him, the boy did not expect to meet him in this position, so he was very frightened by the surprise. The young owner asked him what he was doing here, and the boy turned to them in shame and asked if they knew each other, as he did not remember them at all. He realized that it was the girl from the restaurant, and thought that she had argued with him so much in the restaurant that he shouldn't pretend that they didn't know each other. He decided to play up her insult and said that he must have confused him with someone else, apologized, and moved on. He added that his memory of his face had completely deteriorated after falling into the lake, to which the girl said she remembered him because she had taken a bone from him during an exam. Chengren said that he also thought from the very beginning that this was the same guy from the exam. But that guy had a mole on the right side of his nose, not the left, so he could easily have been confused by another person. The girl quickly turned her back to them to check her mole to see if she had really glued it in the wrong place, still not revealing her own image. She kept making excuses to them that they simply did not remember her location correctly. Chengren asked her why she had come, and she said that she had heard about the fame of the fourth master and decided to see him when she passed by the place. In turn, she asked him why he had come here today. Chansam explained to the girl that he was facing the fourth master of the Heavenly Dragon Agency in person. She was so happy she couldn't believe her luck that she had met him. It was so incredible Chengren thought she would be a good actress. She said what a coincidence that he was the only person she met at the exam, and the master said they hadn't met yet. The girl punched his hand and introduced herself with her fictitious male name, Punjin Yang, and congratulated him wholeheartedly on his victory in the exam. He thought about the fact that she had really come to meet him in person and what all the disguise was for. No matter how much you disguise yourself as a man, you can't hide such a beautiful smile, and she doesn't seem to realize it, but one day he will tell her about it. He bowed to her and thanked her for traveling such a long way for him, saying that they would meet again. Having finished on that note, he turned around and was about to walk away when the girl stopped him. Chengren stopped and asked her what else she wanted, and she asked if he wanted to eat hot rice soup with her. Still, they agreed to eat it together when they met after the exam. A girl in a man's suit said they could do it today because she had no plans today. He thought that she had come specifically to see him, although he did not know the real reason for it yet. He did not have time for these amusements. Chengren said that they had actually agreed to eat noodles, not rice soup, to which the girl said she had gotten it wrong. The fourth master and the servant headed for the entrance, and the girl stood her ground, inviting them to eat together, but he said only that he was a little busy today. The girl was offended by this attitude and shouted that she had waited here for half a day to have lunch with him. Catching her in the act, Chengren asked her if she hadn't said that she was just passing by the building where he was supposed to be. She was honest with him and told him that she wanted to know the secret of how to become the best because she had heard that all the judges had unanimously chosen his answers as the best. Although he said a lot of different things in the restaurant, she was sure that there was something in the young master that no one else had. She punched him in the arm and said that she really wanted to learn his skills. In Murama, the words, "I want to learn from you," have quite a lot of meaning, especially when they are said by someone from the Namgun clan. Since she was the granddaughter of the lightning sword itself, she was humiliating herself to do so. Chengren simply asked her to give up because she didn't know him well. He was just a simple idiot from Hangzhou, and he was lucky in the exam. She was no ordinary girl with a sharp tongue, so she told him that it was more accurate to say that he was a half-wit and a blowhard loser. But he proved in the exam that those rumors were all lies, didn't he? Chengren asked why he was so fixated on that exam. He said that the girl's clothes looked bad, but her skin and face were well-groomed. She had obviously grown up in a rich family, and there are many ways to succeed in life. She explained that she is one of those people who bring things to the end on their own. She asked him if he had any idea where she came from, but the young master was not very interested in this. He sighed and explained to her that he recognized that her views and understanding were different from other people's, but he was not going to teach her for a plate of noodles. But their discussion was interrupted by the announcement that the king of the agency, the heavenly dragon, had arrived. Everyone was pushed out of the way so that they would not interfere with Li Zhongsang and his escorts moving to the room where the sorting ceremony was taking place. The king was approaching, and Li Chengren still hadn't figured out how to get to the sorting ceremony, so he told the girl that he agreed to eat noodles with her. But he agreed not just like that, but on one condition, and she asked him what that condition was. He didn't know if the girl knew that his father was going there. He will definitely ask about her, so she needs to remember 3 things. They only met after the exam, and she is here to return the book. He also rejected her offer to attend the sorting ceremony, but if she could manage it, he would help her with her request. She asked him why he needed all this, but he didn't have time to explain, and promised that if he got there thanks to her, he would definitely find time for lunch. He doesn't promise any outlandish secrets, but he will answer all her questions honestly and sincerely. She laughed and remarked that it looked like he needed her much more than she needed him. This changed the situation, and now she began to bargain. Asking him how many plates of noodles he would buy her, he replied that he would buy 3. This did not satisfy the girl, and she shouted that he would buy her not 3 plates but 10 plates of her choice, as the young owner had no time left. As the king of the agency approached the gate, he held his gaze on the 3 young men. He was looking at them, and the king saw him and asked who he was. They stood silently. Then the king asked them louder, asking them if they did not hear him. He asked who it was. The guy hit my hand, bowed, and introduced himself as a student from Yangzhou named Punjin Yang. He explained that he had taken the state exam with a young master, Li Zhongren, and that's where they met. In his bow, he told the king that he was honored to meet the king of the Heavenly Dragon Agency in person. The king said it was the first time his son's friend had visited them and asked if they had really taken the exam together, and the boy confirmed that they had. Li Zhongsang wanted to know how his son's friend had done in the exam. Punjin Yak only answered modestly that he had barely managed to pass the state exam. The king praised the boy and said that this was a serious achievement for such a young man. In his opinion, he does not deserve such praise because he took only 10th place when Master Chen Ren became better, and the young master was speechless from what he heard. The king's attendant noticed that the student from Yangzhou mentioned on the posters was a friend of the young master. Poon Jin Yang did not look masculine enough, but he was elegant and intelligent. The king of the agency was happy that his son, Li Chengren, was able to make friends with the smart boy. The young master wondered when they might have seen his name on the poster, and then remembered that they were hung all over Hangzhou. The king asked what they were doing here, and the boy replied that he had come to return a borrowed book from a young master. Li Chengren quickly took control of the situation, saying that Pu Jinyang was a little interested in the sorting ceremony, but they heard loud and cheerful shouts of congratulations in honor of Li Ben Ren. A group of men were discussing how great they had had a good time today, celebrating the passing of the 3rd master's exam. Li Ben Ren was visibly cheerful and drunk when he suddenly saw his father and younger brother standing in front of him on the road. A group of young people bowed before the king of the agency, and he in turn asked where they were. The 3rd master explained to his father that he and his friends were just sitting and having dinner, and he wanted to go home alone, but Gu Teyo insisted on being escorted. Chen Ren looked at him with disgust and thought what kind of dinner was there, as his brother was drunk out of his mind. The king of the agency wisely said that sharing joy with friends while young is great, and invited his son and his friends to the sorting ceremony. Now it was the turn of the younger son and his new friend, and he asked what they were saying about the ceremony. Cheng Ren said that Pun Jinyang had asked to attend the ceremony, but he refused him because outsiders were not allowed to enter, so he was going to send him away. The king was enraged by his words and called his son a shameless scoundrel because he not only did not fulfill the request of his friend who had come from far away, but also sent him away. He asked Pu Jinyang if he really wanted to watch the ceremony. He replied that he would have loved to see it with his own eyes and bowed to the king of the agency for his understanding and kindness. Upon entering the room where the sorting ceremony was taking place, they saw many porters holding the goods in a perfectly straight line. After taking their seats, Chen Ren thanked his friend for this success, because without him, nothing would have happened. and she said that she had only heard about the ceremony through gossip. She did not know that they received so many different requests, and he explained that it is not clear at first glance that today they will only show generally available things. Goods in the chariot under the blue flag will be delivered secretly based on the order of the supply manager. Ben Ren was mentally angry with his brother because he had just returned from the bar, and because of Chen Ren, he was now obliged to take part in the ceremony. Often in those chariots, silver coins to send to other cities, jewelry for noble ladies, bribes to people of high rank, are definitely not for the bandits to know. The king and everyone else rose from their seats to prepare for the ceremony. After opening the scroll handed over by the king of the agency and reading the entire text, the chief accountant announced that the sorting had begun. The sorting ceremony began in the early evening and lasted until about 1 a.m. Li Zhongsang announced the end of the sorting ceremony. But even then, Chen Ren knew that there would be another request from someone who was about to arrive. Someone's hand went up and rang the bell in alarm. The king of the agency, who was about to leave the ceremony, froze in his tracks, realizing what was about to happen. Pun Jinyang asked Chen Ren what was happening and what kind of bell was ringing, and he told her not to be too surprised because a strange sight was about to happen. The guards called for the chief accountant of the agency, and he heard everything himself. Only the fourth master had already arrived at the building. The world seems to slow down when the bell rings throughout the escort agency, a sound that even he, a native speaker with 30 years of experience, has not been able to get used to. But today, everything was different. He was waiting for this request like no other, and the chief accountant at the time ordered everyone to get ready. Opening the gates to those who arrived the latest, they stood tense and alert. Before them stood an old and wise-looking man wearing a headband with the sign of yin and yang on it. An old man was ringing a bell, and behind him stood the dead with their hands raised like puppets. Pun Jin-young immediately realized who had come to the ceremony and what their purpose was. Behind the old man stood the Jiangshi dead, revived by an otherworldly force. She noticed that these Jiangshi's pants were almost completely torn. She could not even imagine what they had to go through to get here. Clearing his throat, the old man introduced himself as a follower of the Maoshan sect, his name being Du Honggyong, who died 5 days ago in the Xianxia Mountains to the southwest. From Zhejiang province, more than 100 civilian soldiers are dead because of a demon who is now on the run and is now engaged in bringing them back. He came to the relevant sects at the request of their brethren for this reason to ask for help, accompanied by an accountant who introduced himself. Son Ji Baek, the transportation manager of the Heavenly Dragon Agency, expressed his gratitude for the agency's assistance and said that he could discuss the matter with him. Du Hongkyung thanked him for such a warm welcome, and they began to discuss the details of the request. Chen Ren asked Pun Jinyang if she was surprised by what she saw, and she said that it was the first time she had seen the Jiangshi with her own eyes. They looked so much like people. He explained that living people are much scarier than those who are no longer with them. They will not do anything bad, because they move only on the orders of their master. She asked if they were also considered cargo, and he explained that they were not, but that their owner was asking the agency to load them into a free chariot that was heading in their direction. Pun Jinyang was also wondering if such strange requests come often. They are received quite often during epidemics after major battles and major conflicts between sects, while in peacetime there are almost no such requests. She would never have thought that their agency would do this. And agencies don't like such requests because the smell of Jiangshi makes them crazy. Even experienced escorts try to avoid these requests, but agencies hardly charge for such escorts. The girl was surprised by this and wondered why they charged so little for it. It turned out that the agency allocates only one additional chariot for the request. There is a belief that 3 years of bad luck will haunt the one who gets rich on those who are no longer there. Pun Jinyang now understood why it was not like the usual procedure for applying for an escort. Li Chengren realized that the agency would accept this request because he needed urgent help, and as a result, dozens of soldiers and carriers would be destroyed forever. The only way to stop this course of events was to force the Heavenly Dragon Agency to reject the request for an escort from the Maoshan sect. But it was probably too late, because after a long conversation, the chief accountant and the accompanying Jiangshi bowed to each other. The general manager announced that they had decided to accept this request for transportation to Jiangnan province to Mount Jianyue. Since the Taoist has already sent postal pigeons to 3 sects, people will come to meet the escorts on the mountain. The chief manager asked for the registration book, and his servant quickly found it and handed it to him. The manager looked at the book and said that there should be several caravans in their direction, namely 12 heading to Jianghan province. He asked which of the 12 would like to accept the request, and the men held their noses, saying that if the Jiangshi went with them, they would slow down. They will have to constantly stop to open the coffins, to pour herbal decoctions, and check the talismans, and it is a lot of trouble on the road. The chief manager explained that only one additional chariot was needed for 10 coffins, and it was cold, so there was no need to worry about the smell. Is no one going to take on this task? Everyone was clearly indifferent to it. Chen Ren watched this, and thought it was great that no one wanted to take on this task, and he would use it to make them refuse. Suddenly, Li Binren slammed on the table and shouted that the agency was obliged to reject the request. He apologized to the Taoist for the inconvenience, but could he send the pigeons to the sects again and ask them to pick up the bodies from their agency? Everyone was shocked when the third master spoke. He was one of 7 masters, responsible for dozens of escort soldiers. Chen Ren realized that this was his way of showing off for his friends and father, but it was a fool's act because the Taoist asked him to explain why he was refusing his request. Ben Ren explained to him that those who died were martial arts masters and fell at the hands of other masters, and the agency did not want to be involved in the conflict. It seems that he was wrong about something. These warriors laid down their lives in an attempt to stop a monstrous demon and perish at the hands of other masters of fiction. Ben Ren was still proving that his statement was not false, because they had died in the battle with the master, even if that person was a demon. The Taoist had nothing to say to this, because it was impossible to prove his case without evidence. He is such a fool to suggest that we should not believe the words of this man, even though he is dressed in the garb of a special sect. Li Chengren noticed that his friend was sitting on Ben Ren's left hand and muttering to himself. The fact was that all this time his brother was simply repeating what his friend was telling him with the help of sound transmission techniques. Li Benren finished expressing almost his opinion by hitting his fist on his palm, and his friend immediately fell silent, as if nothing had happened. The general manager thought for a long time about what would be the right thing to do in this situation, and decided to ask what the escorts thought. Do the rest of the 7 masters share the same opinion, to which I received the answer that they do not think so. Chen Ren thought that it was normal to hesitate. They would look too heartless if they agreed with Ben Ren. But this is the only way to refuse this request. The girl asked the same thing. Isn't it easier to refuse a request if no one agreed? He explained that the agency has a tradition of not refusing requests without a good reason. Jiangshi magic was created to bring bodies back to their homeland, to their families. If it were not for these soldiers, neither their country nor the agency would exist. So as a sign of honor, it became a tradition to accompany them for free, even if they were not soldiers who died on a real battlefield. These fighters ended their lives in a fight with a demon that has already killed many civilians, which means they should be respected as true warriors of their country. After finishing his speech, Chen Ren looked around and noticed that everyone was silently watching him. He asked her why she was looking at him so strangely, if he had something on his face, and she laughed and said that she was not the only one looking at him. And everyone else at the ceremony was also looking at him with their heads turned. But his father and older brother watched him most closely and with serious faces. Li Chengren was almost panicking from being in the public eye, and he couldn't understand why everyone was staring at him. Poon Jinyang explained that it seems that everyone present heard his speech about Jiangji. They are all experienced masters and know how to amplify hearing well, so when he spoke so quietly, they could still hear him. After his speech, the manager said that he was on the side of the Taoist from the Maotian sect, and there was no reason to doubt his words. His thoughts completely coincided with those of the 4th master, and Chen Ren blamed himself for this because he had ruined his plan on his own. The general manager wanted the Northern Dragon convoy to take over the transportation of the Jiangshi, and he reminded Zhang's chief escort that mistakes in this mission were unacceptable. He bowed to the manager, obeying him at this stage, and only the king of the agency could deny his words. All missions were scheduled, and the triage ceremony was nearing completion when it was suspended again. The 2 eldest sons of the king of the agency were sent to the manager, saying that problems could arise if everything was decided unilaterally. The chairman asked the leader of the Northern Dragon if he had any objections. He explained that Zhang's group's destination was Yangzhou, 5 days from where the Jiangshi needed to be escorted. The manager had to be aware that the Northern Dragon had to deliver 120 tons of rice to Fujian province in 15 days. For this mission, they need all the soldiers and carriers, so the group has no time to delay. The manager understood what he was saying, but now everyone has problems. Therefore, they would be assigned second carriers and soldiers, and there was no more discussion about the fact that the older brothers were furious with this decision. Shenren wondered what he could do. He couldn't let this happen. He had to stop them before it was too late. He could think of nothing better than to raise his hand and nominate himself for this mission. Everyone was again shocked by his courage or stupidity. Benren reminded them that there was only 1 month left before the capital exam, and he decided to go on a mission. The manager explained that only escort soldiers and porters could join this mission, and he could not allow a potential tragedy to occur, so he insisted. He said that he wanted to go as an accompanying Jurin, and they needed to know that the young master was capable of it. But Jurins don't go on escort missions. It's a rare event, but he'll make an exception for him. He understood how he felt about the brave deeds of the fallen, and he would rather stop, let them take care of the Jiangshi themselves, and let him prepare for the exam. Chen Ren passed the provincial exam only for the sake of rank and the opportunity to go on escort missions. The capital exam loses all meaning for him if he is not even eligible for it. People started discussing his decisions, thinking that he had matured and was still making bad decisions. The manager said that if he passes the capital's exam, he will be able to become at least a regional magistrate. But would he really give it all up for the position of an escort soldier? And so it was that Li Chengren clearly knew his purpose in this life and how to achieve it. The manager could not understand why he wanted to become a warrior so desperately. In the past, he had already had such a dream of becoming an escort warrior, and his friend thought he was drunk to dream like that. How could an ordinary carrier become a warrior? Since he was lame, he was advised to go to school and become a government official after graduation. While they were having a drink, the head of the escort, Gabulam, came to the restaurant. Someone from the escort approached him with gratitude because his son survived thanks to the medicine he gave him, and the head of the escort was happy to hear it. The reason why he wants to become a warrior, he looked at his father. He asked the escort soldiers why they chose this path. Did they become escorts because they lacked the talent to hold public office? He did not understand why being a government official was better than being an escort soldier. Do they really regret the years they spent on this noble cause? The soldiers began to answer one by one that how could they be sorry? They were very proud of their work. If they ask why he wants to become an escort warrior, he wants to become not just a simple warrior, but a respectable one. To live his life with dignity like all other soldiers, regardless of what other people think or say about it. For him, this direction made more sense than a public office. His father did not even know how to react to his speech. An escort warrior is a martial artist who dedicates his life to working for the escort agency, the king of the agency, Li Zhongsang, the escort commander. Huangsok, Sang Li, Gab, Ren Li, Yol, Ren Li, Ben Ren, group leaders, pavilion leaders, chief escorts, all count as escort warriors. Just as swordsmen dream of becoming great masters, and scholars dream of becoming masters of writing, so escort warriors dream of becoming respected escorts. Only 4 people have managed to become famous throughout the Central Valley, 4 great and respected escorts who are respected among agencies as heroes. One of them, Li Zhongsang, was promoted to the rank of honorable in the Heavenly Dragon Agency, and he took another step and became known as the king of escorts. All the others are also experienced warriors, and his answer knows exactly the place in their hearts. And then Li Chengren, the 4th master and youngest son, would turn everything upside down. Poon Jinyang laughed and reminded him that he had only one question, and everyone laughed and shouted that his friend was right about that. Shenren asked a lot of questions, and it was impossible to argue with him. He was completely right. He was called an incredible master because he bravely defended himself and his personal position, receiving understanding from the soldiers of the escort. But it will be all for naught if the king of the agency opposes his speech. But his father just smiled, clearly appreciating his efforts. The manager stated that the Heavenly Dragon Agency officially states Li Chengren will be hired as an escort warrior. He will also join Zhang Riangi's convoy heading to the Jianyue Mountains. The 2 older brothers were talking to each other about how things had taken a very strange turn. Li Chengren could not believe his happiness. He had finally managed to become an escort warrior because he had dreamed of it for so long. The manager said that all the missions had been assigned and the ceremony was coming to an end. But before he could finish his last word, he was interrupted again, this time by Poon Jinyang, who asked to hire her as well. Punching her fist in the palm of her hand, she said that she was Poon Jinyang, who took 10th place in the exam. She will be immensely grateful if they hire her for a mission to the capital exam. Shenren was angry. Why did she suddenly decide to go out without him? And was she going to treat him to noodles right after the capital exam? He explained that the escort mission is harder than she thinks. There is no swimming, no sleeping in the mountains and fields if they don't make it to the city by nightfall. Her life could be in danger at any moment. She said that there are people who live in such a dangerous job to feed their children and support their parents. But everyone she saw here was living this dream, even though she didn't have her own sword and wasn't so fragile that she couldn't withstand a few days of mission. And it takes 5 days to walk to the mountain, but she knows a way that will take only 3 days, her homeland of Yangzhou after all. The manager stated that crossing the rivers and mountains of the Central Plains is their job, and how can she know routes they have never heard of? He asked if he was responsible for his words, and Pun Jinyang replied that he was, without a doubt, and that he was putting his hand on it. Li Chengren noticed that she behaved like a real man, and they would have become best friends if not for the masquerade between them. Li Zhongsang called Soksang over to talk to him and asked him what he thought about Zhongryong and whether he really wanted to become a warrior. Soksang told him that it was just bravado. He's very stubborn, just like his father, but what's the use of all this if he doesn't know anything about martial arts? But this is not a problem. The escort warrior must know martial arts to protect the cargo on the mission when it is necessary, and there are other ways to fulfill it. He feels sorry for him because his son has so many easy ways in life. If he really wants to become an escort warrior, he can go on missions, and then to become the head of the pavilion. Before, he looked like he was going to wander the world all his life, and now he has embarked on a rather difficult path for him. Songchan agreed with the king's words and also said that he knew a second warrior of the same escort. He followed this path for 40 years and became the owner of the largest escort agency in Zhejiang province. Did he really mean to say that his son was following in the same footsteps and that it was quite spontaneous, and that since he wanted to do so, he just had to trust fate? By the way, if he becomes a respectable warrior as he wishes, he will have to fight with his brothers, whether he likes it or not. Of course, if he doesn't lose his life even earlier, like all the other ordinary soldiers. Fate is something that can only be jinxed by the gods themselves, and people can only obey. Li Zhou's son has been watching him for 22 years, and his recent actions have struck him as an ordinary father who wants to know what his son is really like. No matter how many times a worm is spun, it remains a worm, and there are worms that eat snakes and throw wild boars off their feet. For example, the spirit of heaven and earth on Mount Wuji, which is talked about throughout Jiangsu. The king ended the conversation and asked about that girl, Pun Jinyang, who wanted to join the mission. Does he have any idea who she is? And Songchang said she was too young to be famous. She has an unusual gait and was definitely trained in martial arts, but why did she disguise herself as a man? Perhaps to get closer to Chen Ren. But he shouldn't have been so worried. The king himself had noticed that they always look at each other with warmth. She is a cheerful and clean girl with an elegance in her words and behavior, and she definitely came from a rich family. Still, we can't ignore it. The king ordered us to find out more about her. He also ordered a capable escort soldier to reinforce the convoy. Sun Chan had just such a man in reserve for anyone besides Gab Ren Yolren and Ben Ren. His name is Ga Bulam, one of their newcomers, and he defeated most of the main escorts using a long sword. And he is also very experienced in Jiangsu, and he is the right person for this mission. Meanwhile, Ben Ren and his older brothers were saying about Chen Ren that he didn't even understand martial arts. What kind of speech was that? He went on a mission at a time when he was supposed to be preparing for the exam. They couldn't believe it for the best. In the provincial exam, it was real. He would have had a great chance if he hadn't underestimated the capital exam. Ben Ren said that his older brother thought too highly of him. Yol Ren asked Ben Ren if he was really going to take the capital exam. My brother did not understand what the question was about, and it was obvious because he had also passed the provincial exam. His mother could have bribed a judge to help him pass the provincial exam, and how are they going to pull it off in the capital? Are they going to go all the way to Beijing to bribe everyone involved? Gab Ren said that Chen Ren had changed a lot in such a short time, and that their father's attitude towards him had changed with him. He explained that their father had given their younger brother his meteorite dagger, which was a very valuable object. Gab Ren said that it was better for this seedling to never become a big tree. Soon after, the escort mission began, with a convoy led by Zhang Riangyi, Li Chengren, and Pun Jinyang moving toward their destination. The commander-in-chief of the convoy asked the fourth foreman if he was okay, and he asked why he was asking, and he said that he was barely driving. Is it strange? Chen Ren asked, and was told that yes, it looked very strange. The fourth master turned to the head of the convoy with a question. Can they take a short break? Because if this continues, soon there will be nothing left of his offspring, and he was denied this. After all, there is a clear schedule of how far they have to go in a day, and they have to reach the Chansa Valley before sunset, so you can't change the schedule because of it. Chen Ren knew that last year a new trail had been laid along it to the valley, only 6 hours away. He was just mocking him. But there's no one to blame for that. He's a fool for not learning to ride a horse. Who would have thought that keeping balance would be so difficult? The head of the convoy asked the fourth master if he wanted to get down from his horse and walk if it was so difficult for him. Just leading a horse will not be as exhausting for him as being a carrier and pulling a load on his back. The convoy heard the fourth master being verbally mocked by their commander-in-chief and burst into laughter. Zhang Ryan Gui, leaving the convoy behind, rushed forward, shouting that they would meet later. Pun Jinyang said that with such a posture, he would not get far. Chen Ren told her that he was fine for now and that he was fine. She asked him to straighten his back and shift his center of gravity to his hips, gently squeezing his legs as if he were hugging a horse. Chen Ren did everything she said, asking if he was doing everything right. The horse beneath him was rearing up, and the young master was afraid that he would fall on it, but he felt that he had to keep his balance at all times. The precious daughter of the Namgun clan was so good in the saddle, he had no time for pride. He had to learn quickly until the person lost the desire to teach him. He tried his best to keep his balance, and he thought that he could save Pun Jinyang at any moment. Jinyang taught him and supported him verbally that he would make it. Each of the animal's 4 legs moves independently, so its body has to adapt to this, and it takes time, and he asked me to teach it something else. She smiled and said that we shouldn't expect him to learn everything so quickly. How can he tell all the secrets of passing the exam in just 1 plate of noodles? Chen Ren said that he was giving 7 cups of noodles and dumplings on top, to which she asked if there were not supposed to be dumplings. He said that this answer satisfied her, as it was still a green liquor made from green bamboo leaves. She taught him how to hold the reins and try to keep his movements in time with the horse's swaying. Then slowly let go of the hands. If done correctly, the whole upper body synchronizes with the horse's movements as if it were one with the horse. At first, he loosened his arms and finally felt the horse's movements under him as he should. Who would have thought that you could learn this just by following the instructions? It was definitely worth the extra dumplings. Pun Jinyang was happy to hear this and kicked the horse's ass with all her might and shouted that he would now work for bamboo liquor. The horse took off and galloped forward with all his might, and Chen Ren tried not to fall off his saddle. She shouted at him to do his best since she had taken over his training, because in critical situations, such methods are always much more effective. Chen Ren flew forward on his horse directly at the convoy, shouting at them to get out of his way or they would lose their lives. He was begging the horse to stop here, and the humiliation alone would not be enough. Serious injuries could result. But suddenly, he found himself thinking that he could feel his horse's movements again. But the movements were as if time had slowed down again, just like in the restaurant. Chen Ren remembered that he had superpowers with them. He can now feel completely different movements and changes in his horse's behavior. He rode for 6 days, testing himself and learning new things in this business, and eventually he succeeded. He was caught up by Pun Jinyang, who knew he would learn quickly, but she did not expect him to learn so quickly, and he said that it was all thanks to his teacher. But without his abilities, he could not have done it so quickly, and the girl said that he could have just agreed, but it was hardly because of her. He thought that without Pun Jinyang, that is, without Namgun Soso, he would not have been able to cope. He handed her a flower he had picked on the way, and said that this was a gift for her. Pun Jinyang was outraged at why he was giving the flower to the boy, and he asked why not, because not everyone likes willows. She asked him to throw away that flower, or better yet, to blow it to the girl, and he thought that she was a girl. She blushed and said that, for example, she could give it to Lady Cho Yongyong. He asked where she could have heard this about him, and Yongyong said that only deaf people in Hangzhou do not know. He thought that it was his karma, or something like that, because Pun Jinyang wanted to ask him something. She gathered her courage and asked him what he liked about Lady Yongyong. Chen Ren asked if she had seen her before, and she replied that she had only met her a couple of times. Realizing that she had said too much, she corrected herself and said that they had never met before. Chen Ren laughed and said that they would introduce them one day. Although it was all a rumor, it is said that she is one of the 3 beauties of Hangzhou, and she is really very pretty. But it has always been the case that bees are attracted to the scent of a flower, not its appearance. Pun Jinyang asked if Yongyong smelled bad. and the fourth master laughed and explained that if you like a person, you like everything about them. Likes, habits, voice, eyes, pronunciation, and perspectives are only one factor among many, and even that is quite subjective. If the question was whether he liked her or not, he probably didn't like her, and her appearance was not really important to him. He sounds quite convincing for someone who jumped into the lake because of this girl, and he explains that he has rethought a lot of things when he was on the brink of death. She had heard more than she wanted to hear, and she didn't ask any more questions. Speaking of their agreement, would he tell her about the books he used to prepare for the exam? He said he didn't remember them all by heart, but he will definitely remember them a little later, and asked for time to do so. She stopped the horse and looked at him angrily, as if he was trying to turn away from her. If it is so important to her, he will be able to remember when and teach him acupuncture. Li Cheng-ren explained that during the exam he saw a pen with a steel tip. Such tips are used to hit acupuncture points, thus neutralizing the enemy, and she herself had studied this a little at the martial arts academy. It will be difficult to teach someone this, and people don't teach martial arts to others that easily, or he doesn't know that, and he only asked for the location of these points. Critical points are also called mute points, to leave the possibility of speaking and paralyzing points by striking, which can neutralize the enemy. Isn't this information a secret? She was surprised that he didn't even know this, because Chen Ren is the fourth master of the agency. But he said that if he didn't want to talk, he should forget, because he couldn't remember anything about the provincial exam anyway. She gave up and said that she would tell him about the dots, but for some reason, she felt that she was not getting any benefit from it all. Meanwhile, the convoy was passing through the mountains, and a small obstacle arose on their way. Zheng Riangiao raised his hand to the mountain, ordering the entire convoy to stop. This alarmed everyone. Most of them wondered what could have happened and decided to just watch what would happen next. The commander asked why the two of them stuck their noses out in front of Chen Ren, asked if all the escort soldiers shouldn't be gathered together in such a situation. The commander-in-chief said that he did not seem to know much about the world of escort soldiers. Li Cheng-ren asked him why he didn't teach him this, if that was the case. The commander wanted to be honest with him, even though his words sounded a bit harsh. He said that the Jurin were no match for them either there or in the agency, let alone in the mission. And the reason was very simple. They were not useful during tasks. For example, porters could carry additional cargo, push horse-drawn chariots, cook and do laundry. Jurins do nothing at all, except bear the name of warriors. Chen Ren noticed that, judging by his words, the escort soldiers were also doing nothing. But why is he so sure that the young master does not know anything about escort missions? I wonder why he came to this conclusion. Then the commander-in-chief decided to do the following. He would ask him 2 questions. If he answers them correctly, he will fulfill one of his requests. But if he answers both questions incorrectly, then he's going to get it wrong. He and his friend are going to cook dinner together tonight, and they will have to feed all the soldiers' porters and horses. He expected something like this from Zhang Riangui, since he was a subordinate of his brother Li Yiol-ren, and it seems to him that he would do anything to destroy Chen Ren. The fourth master said that if he won, the commander-in-chief would feed everyone, and he agreed to such conditions. Zhang Rengyi asked if the master could see the branch lying in the middle of the road, which was a sign that people from Jianghu leave for those who are coming behind. This is called a hidden sign in the world. There are many types of them, but this one is used by escort people. Each of these warriors knows about it. The commander-in-chief asked what the name and meaning of this secret sign was. Peng Jiang intervened, saying that it was too much because it was their first mission. How could they know what only experienced escort soldiers know? The commander-in-chief said that it doesn't matter if it is their mission or not. If they call themselves escort soldiers, they should know this, and Chen Ren should know it even more so. The fourth master rudely interrupted him, reminding him that when a question is asked, one must listen to the answer. Perhaps the head of the escort disagrees with the words of the young fourth master. Chen Ren replied that the secret sign was called an evil tiger in ambush. After the answer, there was silence, and everyone in the escort stared at him with open mouths. Zheng Riangye was more stunned than anyone else, and even asked what he had just said. The young master repeated his answer again, emphasizing that the name of the secret sign is an evil tiger in ambush. But I had to tell you the meaning of this sign, which means that there may be an ambush in the forest ahead. Chen Ren reminded him that he would be looking forward to dinner and that he should not forget to feed all the horses. The convoy was approaching its first stop in the picturesque Chansa Valley. The commander saw that a gang of bandits who called themselves the Green Forest were resting ahead, so he ordered the soldiers to remain vigilant. Li Chengren asked Pun Jinyang if she knew how to fight with swords, and she replied that she had a little experience in it. He asked if he was a student or a martial arts master, and she said that you don't have to be a master to be called a warrior. And since he passed the provincial exam, he is now more of a scientist. Chen Ren thinks that she can handle both of these areas, and why she tries to learn to become a warrior, just like the Shaolin Buddhists. But she had a dream of creating a Murima sect together with scientists, and in order to fulfill it, she needed to pass the capital's exam. Chen Ren laughed good-naturedly and asked if it sounded so unrealistic, and he just didn't hear such a serious reason. But I definitely did not expect her to share this with him. She was preparing for the future. If she became a martial arts master, she would come up with her own technique. That's why she is taking the imperial exams now, while she still has time, and Chen Ren asked why she was telling him about such important things. Firstly, because she has already heard his dream, and thirdly, it will help to avoid his annoying questions about the combat techniques she will use. She may be saying it too late, but in the battle itself, she is much more talented than he could have imagined. He thought that she was saying that she was going to fight, even though he didn't like bragging, and felt that he sincerely wanted to support her. He just said that unfortunately, they wouldn't fight, so she didn't have to worry about it. She didn't understand what he meant by that, but he explained that instead of shedding each other's blood, it would be more efficient to use money. A man named Yom Wang was on his way to the head of the Kushan camp, and he addressed Commander Zhang, saying that they had not seen each other for a long time. The commander asked him if everything was as usual, to which he laughed and replied that if something had happened, he would not be standing here now. Yom Wan Du noticed that this time they had a lot of goods and asked where they were going. Zhang Rianyi said that they would stop by Yangzhou and then head to Mount Jiangnu, to which he said that it was a long way. He mentioned that there was a heavy rain last night and the river level rose, so they will not be able to cross it now and will have to wait at least until tomorrow. With no other way out after the rain all over the valley, they had no other option but to wait it out. It was not good. They had to get out of the valley at any cost, and people could not oppose nature itself. Since it happened, Yomwan Do offered to eat with them all, as they were cooking the prey that was wandering around their camp. There would be enough meat for everyone, and Chen Ren was alerted by his friendliness. Zhang Ryangui hesitated, but they had no choice at the moment. So he ordered the escort soldiers to dismount and the porters to lower the cargo, because they would wait here for a while. Following the order, they tied up their horses and sat down on the ground to rest and eat. Zhang Riangji and Yomwan Du had a fun lunch together and had a lot to talk about, so they sat separately from the others. Chen Ren ate tough meat and thought that it would be impossible to tell whether he was eating meat or dry root. Pun Jinyang asked him if it was always like that, and he explained that the main attendants are always well fed wherever they go. She didn't quite mean it, but she asked if it was really calm to sit and eat with such people, or if it was a common thing for them. She seems to not know much about what is happening in the agency and on missions. She thought that when she met a green forest, she would have to organize a massacre. If we had to do this every time, there would be no soldiers and carriers left alive, and the same goes for bandits. She still couldn't believe that it was that simple, and those who applied for the delivery might feel betrayed if they saw it. He explained that something could always go wrong, and then a fight would be hard to avoid. For example, when the leader of a stronghold changes, when they demand an unprecedented amount of money for moving, or when groups of accompanying agencies do not consist of people they already know, there are various factors to consider. Chen Ren noticed that the atmosphere in the camp today was rather strange. Zhang Rianyi continued to watch the two of them for a long time. Pun Jinyang looked at him and wondered why he was looking at them, and the young master said that sooner or later they would find out. Their commander-in-chief approached them and addressed Master Chen Ren. He said that they have a problem. It seems that there is a newcomer among them who joined the stronghold after the killing of an official and his family in Jinan. But had they heard of the induction ceremony, Chen Ren asked what kind of induction ceremony it was, and he explained that between the Green Forest Gang and the escort agencies allow newcomers to choose one person from the opponent's lineup for a duel when the atmosphere is tense. Green Forest calls it an induction ceremony, and their agency calls it a stupa ceremony. But the fact was that the newcomer on their side chose Chen Ren's friend for the fight. That was their proposal. But Pun Jinyang said that they really thought she was that weak, asking if there were any rules for the fight. But Zhang Riangye threw up his hands and said that in principle there are no rules at all. But the girl was not simple and cunningly asked if she could let her opponent live in that case. But the commander-in-chief was quick to explain that this could cause great enmity between them, so it was better to end on a good note. She asked whether the fight ends when the enemy surrenders, or when he cannot continue fighting, and what happens if she refuses to participate in the ceremony. Chen Ren explained that in this case, they would not allow them to cross the river even tomorrow when the river level drops to normal, so she had no choice. Chen Ren had not participated in such a mission in his previous life, and heard what happened after they returned from the mission. The strangest thing is that there was not supposed to be any ceremony for Zhang Riangyi. It was he who persuaded the leader to find a newcomer and arrange this absurdity to fight him. If he could, he would have sent him to the match, and he would have had problems if the fourth master had been injured in the match. So he forces his friend to take part in it, because that way he will have to take responsibility for it. But it is unlikely that he could have come up with this himself. His brother Yol Ren is behind him, and I wonder what orders Riangyi might have received from him. Perhaps he was ordered to destroy him. In any case, this is a great opportunity to prove yourself as a warrior. Zhang Riang said that he would go to the fight, and people asked him why he would go if they chose Pun Jin Yang. He explained that his friend joined them by accident and had nothing to do with the escort agency. It would be more correct if he took part in the fight. He thought that this was his chance to show his skills, and he should not have missed this opportunity. And Zhang Riangui will be happy about it. He said that if he insists on it, of course he can take part instead of his friend. Suddenly, someone called out to the fourth master, apologizing for interrupting their conversation. The young warrior wanted to settle everything in this Chen Ren recognized Ga Bulam, who would have thought that they would meet here. Ga Bulam asked the young master for permission to participate in his place, and Chen Ren refused. He had already decided to participate on his own, and the young warrior insisted on reconsidering this decision. Suddenly, Pun Jinyak stood up from her seat and shouted at them to shut up, as if they hadn't heard what the gang wanted, and she would take part and no one else. Chen Ren sternly replied that this would not be the case, reminding her that this was a personal matter of the escort agency, to which she had absolutely nothing to do. Moreover, this was now a yogi's fight. Picking up his weapons and leaving them behind him, he confidently moved towards the gang of Green Forest. Chen Ren approached one of his agency's porters, who was peacefully eating his lunch, and noticed that a fourth master was standing in front of him. He quickly got up from his seat and bowed to him, and the master of the agency wanted to ask him something. The bearer was afraid to exchange swords with him, but did not realize what the master had asked him to do. But Li Chengren repeated that he was exchanging his sword for his palaver, and the bearer gladly agreed to hand him his weapon. The swords of the agency's warriors are of quite high quality, but the palaces of the carriers are rough and ungainly and heavy. But the fourth master remembered these feelings because it was his sword, which he had wielded in his previous life for 30 years. Chen Ren explained to the commander that this was his ceremony of entering not only the camp, but also the ceremony of entering the escort, so he would choose his own opponent. They are a convoy of the Heavenly Dragon Agency, and they must not forget that the bandits should not have any influence on them. But he must understand that this is not a child's game, but also not a fight for survival. They will still be using real weapons against each other, so they may not be seriously injured. Therefore, the fourth master must remember that it was his own decision. Chen Ren asked him why he addressed everyone as escort soldiers and called him the fourth master, and he said that he was the fourth master. He recommended that he keep it simple and call him Li's escort warrior. The commander-in-chief said that he was more comfortable calling him the fourth master, and he realized that he simply did not want to recognize him as an escort soldier. Chen Ren said that in that case, they would make a bet because there are rumors that he likes that kind of thing. If he loses in a battle, he will fulfill any request of the commander, who can even drive him out of the agency or make him a carrier. But if he wins this battle, he will become the commander-in-chief of this convoy. Zheng Riangye explained that it would be difficult to do just as it is impossible to change horses on a crossing, nor is it possible to change the head of the convoy in the middle of a mission. Then he proposed to make him acting for 3 days, as the rules definitely allow. He knew all the rules well, so the commander-in-chief agreed to his terms to see what his overconfidence would cost him. Chen Ren approached the bandits of the Green Forest and looked at each one in turn, choosing a worthy opponent. He chose the biggest bandit over there, and he called him the biggest-headed one of them all. Everyone began to ridicule Chen Ren, and the headed thug asked him if he even realized who he was and with whom he was messing. He was known as the Buffalo King of Demons, and was also the deputy leader of the Kunshan camp. Chen Ren said that they have the head of the Blade of Hades, and his deputy Buffalo King of Demons. It seems that only the greatest creatures of hell have gathered. He introduced himself as a new escort warrior of the Heavenly Dragon Agency. Li Chen-ren Buffalo said that there was too much pathos why he chose him. Chen-ren replied that he chose it because there is no better offering than the head of a buffalo. He waved his weapon at him, called him an insolent scumbag, and said he would destroy him along with his excesses. He was not only strong in appearance, even a light hit could be fatal for him. But it was a good thing, because in this way, he could test his skills in a real fight as soon as possible. The buffalo shouted at him not to be happy that he was able to block his blow, and Chen-ren noticed that his opponent was moving very nimbly and quickly. The buffalo told him that he knew he was too weak to fight him, and with one movement, he knocked the sword out of the fourth master's hands. With incredible strength, Chen-ren flew away from the enemy and landed softly on the ground. The buffalo triumphantly walked toward him. He raised his weapon to deal the young master the last critical blow, but Chen-ren took off and counterattacked because while he was dodging his blows, he was waiting for the moment when he would be fully exposed to him. After all, people lose their vigilance when victory seems so close, and then they start acting rashly. Chen-ren caught his head in his strong hands and delivered a quick and critical knee strike right to his face. The blow was so strong that the buffalo flew away from him and fell to the ground half alive, scaring people from his camp, while Chen-ren wiped the sweat from his face, calling him a jerk. Pun Jianong had recently taught him that there are 12 important pressure points in humans. If he is not sure that he will be able to hit them, then just let him hit the enemy's face, because whatever part of him is hit will be fatal. This turned out to be a valuable and useful lesson for him, because if he hadn't known this, everything could have turned out the other way around. He turned to the buffalo, took its face in his hands, and struck it again. The buffalo begged him to stop, and he pressed on the point of its head, causing a slight concussion that would make even an elephant lose consciousness and fall. Chen-ren looked at him triumphantly and thought that he would never have thought it would actually work. The head of the convoy could not believe his eyes, wondering how he could do it. He had never even studied any martial arts, yet he dodged blows with such speed and was able to turn the tide of the battle almost at the very end. Chen-ren wondered why everyone thought he had never studied martial arts, and Pun Jianyang explained that this insult was clear from his movements. Clumsy and without form, as if he was moving intuitively, he laughed and asked if it looked like he could move. She denied that she was trying to say that it looked like he was born for this. She couldn't believe that such a talented man hadn't studied martial arts before, why he was wasting his life on all sorts of nonsense. Suddenly, the head of the escort appeared behind them and congratulated him on passing the ceremony of joining the escort. Chen-ren thanked him in return, saying that without him, this would not have happened, and how much he had confirmed his skills. He becomes the acting chief escort for the next 3 days, handing him a wine bottle as a symbol of the chief escort. Soldiers and porters are forbidden to take their own glasses on escort missions so that they do not secretly drink wine. But the head of the escort is an exception to the rule, because they develop a little wine for everyone if they need to raise their morale. Since this rule has been in place for a long time, the most ordinary wine glass has become the object of the escort's head popping up. Chung-rin told him that he had been having problems with his business lately and hoped that he would have a good rest, while everything was under his control. He called the escort warrior Gabulam to him and ordered him to gather all the porters and soldiers of the convoy. And he announced his first order as acting head of the escort. For the next 3 days, all the escort soldiers will walk the route on foot, and the carriers will learn to ride horses, and the soldiers will help them. Negotiations began among the soldiers and convoy bearers, none of whom expected such a decision and changes in the usual way. This is the order of the head of the escort. If someone disobeys, they will be severely punished, according to the rules of the Heavenly Dragon Agency. Li Chung-ren still remembered the last moments of his past life. 9 carriers were trying to escape while he was stalling for time, and he wondered if any of them had survived. Most of them were most likely caught and killed because they could not run away for long, and if they knew how to ride, at least half of them would have escaped. He was pulled out of his thoughts by a voice telling him that he was no ordinary newcomer and congratulating him on his victory. At the ceremony, he also said that he would let them pass tomorrow when the water level drops, and the tolls will be collected then, and they can also stay here overnight. But for some reason, Li Chung-ren was not quite sure about this, and Yom Wang-do did not understand why the young master had told him so. One of the bandits of the Green Forest gang ran toward them, warning them of the danger, and their leader asked what the sound of the drums was. People from the Chestnut Dragon camp were approaching them on the water with a red flag. Yom Wang-do ordered to quickly gather absolutely everyone who was now in this camp. Poon Jinyang asked why they were so nervous. Chen Ren explained that those people from the Cheshwitago Dragon Camp were pirates who control all the rivers in the area. He also said that if Imuji came out of the water, he would definitely not go back until he caught his prey. It seems like it will be a very rowdy time. The head of the Scaled Dragon Camp, Doc Hackman, said that he had not seen Chairman Jiang Riangi for a long time. The commander-in-chief also said that they had not seen each other for a long time and asked what brought them here today. They found out that the Heavenly Dragon convoy had a problem crossing the river, so they came to help because the river is under their control. The Chansa River Valley becomes their territory from this day forward. If the agency has any problems with transportation, they can simply ask them for help instead of the bandits. Yom Wan-do was furious at his words and asked him what he was doing, and he said that he had heard of him and introduced himself as the head of the Cheshwitago Dragon Doc Gakman. But the gang leader became even more enraged because the valley had always been under the control of the Big Turtle Camp. It was impossible to take over territories just because the river flooded them. What kind of nonsense is that? He knew that the valley sometimes floods, and that even in the dry season, one night of rain would be enough to make the river overflow its banks. Doc Hackman said that doesn't that mean the valley should belong to them, but the leader said that he didn't seem to understand it well. They were surrounded on all sides by the people of the Green Forest, ready to fight for their territories at any moment. The leader of the Green Forest asked if he knew why this mountain was called Kunshin, because the poisonous monster Kun lives here. Poon Jinyang asked Chen Ren what kind of Kung was this, and he said that it was the poisonous Kung snake from Mount Kunshin. This is the name of a snake that lives here, also called the seven-step viper, and if it bites someone, they will be dead before they can walk 7 steps. It looks like they lubricated the arrowheads with its venom, which is usually yellow, but these are almost red, so even a scratch is enough to instantly kill it. And what did she expect from the bandits, who are all the same, taking each other's territories for nothing and greasing their arrows with poison? And this is probably just the beginning. In a previous life, there was a great battle between these two camps, and the Scaled Dragon Camp emerged victorious. After capturing the valley, they lowered the gangway so that the Heavenly Dragon's escort could bring the chariots aboard. But the latter could not support the weight, and the cargo fell right into the river. The convoy still had to wait another day until the water level dropped to normal to cross to the other side. Chen Ren thought that in this life, he could now do without battle and sacrifice. This time, everything will be different. No one will be wounded or killed. They need to get to the other side today and not give anything to the bandits. He ordered the soldiers to gather. They could not take sides. If they chose one, the other would become their enemy. Judging by the number of Scaled Dragon fighters empty-handed, they have no intention of returning. Jiang Riangi asked what the young master thought about this, since he was temporarily acting as the head of the escort, and it was he who would make the decision. They asked whether Chairman Zhang was sure that the Scaled Dragon would appear here, and he replied that it was as much a surprise to him as it was to them. Poon Jinyang asked why he was not prepared, and that it was strange that the head of the convoy was so bad with information. He replied that the head is not omnipotent. There are a lot of gangs and hostile groups around the world, and how can you predict all their actions? But he could have prepared for such a development. He is no better than Chen Ren now, and he ended their dispute, saying that he had a couple of ideas about it. That year, 50 Green Forest bandits found a way for chariots through Mount Huang'an. Traders and agencies that used to have to cross the river to get out of the valley began to use this route. Not only did they no longer have to load chariots onto ships, but the journey was also one day faster. And if the Scaled Dragon captures the valley, he will leave the Big Turtle bandits without profit. An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But these were just guesses, and even if they were true, what good would they do? Chen Ren smiled and said he had a plan in mind. These are bags with a round-trip fare of 50 yang in each. Did he really want to give both bandits a sack? Because he didn't think it would help their situation. If they can stop the conflict and get across the river today, is an extra sack too much to ask for? Zhang Rongye didn't think it would help anyway, but since he was so confident, he had one condition. The second bag of money had to be carried by an escort soldier, because those were the rules. Gabulam put forward his candidacy, asking the young master to take him along, but Chen Ren already had someone in mind. He approached Poon Jinyang, which she did not expect at all. He took her hands and asked if she could help him with this. The escort soldiers and the leaders of the two camps gathered around the fire to discuss their next steps. Doc Hackman asked the young master who he was. Chen Ren told him to watch his language because he was not a simple warrior who came to say hello, but a representative of the Heavenly Dragon. Doc Hackman laughed and asked what the two of them wanted from them. Li Chengren turned to his friend Pun Jinyang and asked him to give him both bags of gold. She asked him for both bags at once, and he pointed with 2 fingers and clarified that 2 meant both bags. Each bag contains 50 yangs. A total of 100 is the maximum that the Heavenly Dragon can afford. Their offer was simple. First of all, they do not care who gets the valley, so they are not going to participate in their showdown and let them decide who is right and who is wrong. Second, they are in a hurry, so they are willing to overpay to cross the river as quickly as possible. The head of the Big Turtle Camp knows that this is a double fee from the usual one, so let them consider it a surcharge for urgency. But Yom Van Do had already explained to the head of the escort that it would be impossible to cross the river until tomorrow, so they would have to wait until the water level dropped. Doc Hackman heard the benefits and said that his camp could help them with this right now. Chen Ren asked him how he would do it, how he would get their convoy across the river. He explained that they had a number of wooden gangways just for loading chariots onto ships. His men will take the goods and lift them aboard the ship and pull the empty chariots up with ropes. And when they are submerged, they will quickly cross the river to the other side where they can continue their journey on dry land. Chen Ren agreed to his proposal by shaking his hand and said that the fare was left to the scaled dragon. Yom Wan Do became very angry and asked if this was the final decision of the Heavenly Dragon. He understood that he was upset and hoped that he realized that they had no other choice, and he did not want to ruin their relationship because of this situation. How could he say such a thing right after he betrayed what had been built for years, promising that no chariot of the agency would ever pass through their valley again? Chen Ren said that he would simply ask the Scaly Dragon to help them with this. The fare goes to the person who helps you to get there. He does not understand why he is accusing the agency. Maybe he is just taking out his anger. Since he could not do anything to the Scaly Dragon, these words made him very angry, and he even overturned the cauldron with food. Yom Wan Do said that everyone began to underestimate them only because their camp became smaller than the others, and that they might be ready to challenge the Green Forest Alliance. Perhaps he wants to say that he is provoking them to a big battle on behalf of his alliance. Yom Wan Do began to make excuses that he didn't mean it. But Chen Ren laughed and told him to relax. It was just a joke, because such decisions are not made on the spur of the moment. Although, as the 4th master of the Heavenly Dragon, he could have done this because he had defeated his replacement. He even got the post of temporary head of the escort, or maybe they thought it was just a coincidence. He decided to ask again if this was an invitation to a big fight, and if so, his men would go to the agency to inform his father. After all, a young master loses almost nothing, but he can say goodbye to his life for such words. Yom Wan Do admitted his defeat and turned his back on them and shouted to his men to get out of here. Doc Hackman told Chen Ren that he admired his determination, and Chen Ren explained that he had to understand that he would have to return to normal relations with the camp. The Great Tortoise will no longer be available, which means that the Green Forest Alliance will be at odds with the Scaly Dragon, and he should not forget this. Doc Hackman slammed his fist into the palm of his hand in agreement with his words, and the year-old alliance represented by his group would never forget his wise decision. Zhang Rangye was shocked by this situation and said that this could not have been allowed to happen if it had not been a dispute between small camps. But with the River Alliance and the Green Forest Alliance involved, you can't take sides, especially when it comes to the Scaly Dragon, who has upset the balance. Chen Ren laughed right in his face and said that he thought he was just waiting for him to embarrass himself in front of everyone. But he realized that the young master had guessed, so he told the truth that before the mission began, the second master had told him not to restrict him in any way. He thought that if he had little experience, he would embarrass himself, and then his father and the entire agency would be disappointed in him and why he was interfering with everything going according to their plan. He was first of all devoted to the Heavenly Dragon Agency, and only then to the second master. He joined the agency when he was 12, and Chen Ren was only 6. He started from the very bottom and worked his way up to the level of the head of the escort. The Heavenly Dragon Agency is the place where he spent his entire youth. Chen Ren thought that this was some kind of deception on his part again, that he was trying to make him feel nostalgic. But the head continued that he did not care what he and his brother did not share. He was just an ordinary escort warrior who was like a blade of grass swaying in the wind. But even so, he cannot allow the agency to be harmed, which is his only wish as an escort warrior. If he was so worried, he could have behaved normally from the very beginning, but for some reason, it looked like he was constantly laughing behind his back. But the chairman explained that he thought that this position would be too difficult for him, and he just gave up. He even conspired with the head of the big turtle. Chen Ren asked if this was because more money had been prepared than needed, and the commander-in-chief said that it was. It sounded like the truth, but who would have thought that he would meet a real escort warrior here? But Li Chengren only told him what his escort had heard, not expecting the master to react so calmly to his words. But the young master told him not to worry. If something went wrong, it would be his personal responsibility. Poon Jin Yak caught up with him and showed him the hidden bag of gold and whispered what they were going to do with it. The young master told her to keep it until he told her to, and she demanded to know why she was doing it at all. She wanted to help resolve the conflict, not to pocket the money. He reminded her that a man should always keep his word, and once he agreed to help, he had to see it through because no one should guess. But suddenly, they heard a loud sound and turned around to see what had happened. They saw that one of the chariots that was being pulled onto the ship by ropes had broken loose and fell into the river, breaking the gangway. Chen Ren approached Doc Hackman and said that they seemed to have a problem. He asked if the chariots of their agency had always been so heavy on this ramp for 10 years, but this was the first time it had happened. It seems that the chariot was indeed heavier than it seemed at first glance. It was made of oak, which absorbs moisture well even when covered with oil. His group will have to return to the base for new ladders, and if you put them one on top of the other, they should hold, but at least until tomorrow. Tomorrow the water level will drop, and they will be able to cross the river anyway, so what's the point of loading on the ships? Doc Hackman asked him to save his face. At least this time he would not be in debt. Chen Ren asked if he was offering to lose his reputation himself. Very concerned about this situation, the head of the scaled dragon asked the fourth master what they should do, but he just smiled smugly and said that he thought he had an idea how they could both stay in the black and not lose their reputations. If you put all their boats on top of each other, you will get gaps of 3 meters. If you put a ladder on top of them, you will get a kind of pontoon. In this way, they would be able to cross to the other side of the river with their cargo by horse and chariot. It was a good idea, but they wouldn't have enough ladders, even with the one they broke, if they could find suitable wooden logs. To do this, you need to climb Mount Kunshan Chen Ren said that they would do it in 30 minutes, and they would be able to do it in 2 hours. But the big turtle camp will not just stand by and watch. It's one thing on the water, but in the mountains they are no match for them. Even with a numerical advantage, the bogies will destroy his soldiers, and he can't let them because of some logs. Chen Ren said that he would simply talk to the camp leader, explaining the situation and asking for help, and that he was not ready to lower his head before the mountain monkey. The young master pointed at himself and said that he would make the arrangements himself. Is he going to do it personally, and he simply has no other options? Yomwan Do looked very angry at their last meeting, unless the fourth master was sure he wanted to leave alone. But Chen Ren was not sure whether he knew that this was the first escort mission, and if he surrendered, he would forever be a laughingstock in the agency. They don't have time to look for other solutions, they have to do everything in their power, so he asked him to return the money. He asked why he should suddenly return the money, and the master said that he really thought he would go to the head of the great turtle empty-handed. After all, they had promised so much and failed to fulfill the task. The chairman handed him back the bag of gold. If both camps are going to work on transportation, wouldn't it be fair to give everyone a bag? Chen Ren put himself in his place, and he too had to save face. He might not agree even for 100 coins, and he might want him to apologize to him. Doc Hackman asked if he really wanted to work with them for free, and the fourth foreman explained that he became an enemy of the great turtle, only so that they could get the valley for themselves. Or maybe he doesn't remember that anymore. He stood in front of them as if he were dipped in water, wondering what decision he should make to avoid being in the red. He asked Chen Ren if it was possible that he wanted to make an alliance with him again behind his back, but he replied that if he kept nitpicking every little thing, he would simply have no choice. Doc Hackman realized that the fourth master was serious and laughed out loud. He was told that rumors should not be believed, and he was the same example. He took out a bag of money and threw it to Punjin Yang, wishing him success in the negotiations, and he in turn would begin preparations with the hope that everything would go well. Chen Ren hoped that this would be the end of them. The black streak ended, and he reminded the pirate that repairing the broken chariot would cost 50 coins. They went to the negotiations together with the warrior Ga Bulem, and Punjin Yang was very visibly nervous. Sheng Ren told her to stop cowering, that the leader was a man of principle, and that if anyone realized what they were doing, they would have to negotiate. She asked what she had to do with it, and he said that she was now his accomplice. She hadn't done anything yet, but whoever was hiding the bag of money, she asked him to take it, and he said he would share it with her when he returned. Their argument about the money was interrupted by Gabulem, who addressed the head of Chenren's escort. He told him that there were people in the green forest ahead of them, but they had already seen them. One of their men approached them, saying that it was not enough for them to beat their deputy, so they also gave the valley to the scaled dragon. He could not believe that they had the nerve to climb the mountains, and humiliated the master by asking if he had any manhood left between his legs. The fourth master could not allow some bandit to humiliate him in front of his escorts, so he slapped him. The gangster was holding his bruised cheek, and the other gangster was calling him a bastard for doing that. While Chenren was asking them where their leader was, his friends behind him took up a defensive position to protect the young master in case of an attack. But one of the bandits had already swung his weapon at him, saying that he would not leave the forest alive, and he was prevented from doing so by the command to stop. Yomwan-do had already warned them to keep their feet off the mountain, because he had not forgotten their long alliance. Did they really want it to end badly? They were in a difficult situation, because there were only 3 of them against a gang of bandits and their leader. Chenren said that he had gone through so much to save him, and he was turning his swords on him in gratitude. He knew that the bandits were cruel, but not to this extent. If he hadn't intervened and asked Doc Hackman for help, they would have fought in accordance with the laws of the gangster world. Did the fourth master think that the leader was afraid of him? But Li Cheng-rin had heard about their fight in his past life. They exchanged 100 blows, but as a result, the head of the big turtle lost an arm, and he was not particularly good at martial arts. But I should have intuitively understood the difference in skills between them, but it's better not to tell him that if you don't want to make him even angrier. Chenren told him that he had no doubt that he would be stronger in a one-on-one fight. But as soon as Doc Hackman is wounded, his subordinates will attack him, because if he wanted to resolve the conflict peacefully, he would not have brought the army with him. Everyone already knew that he was a ruthless thug who would not obey the rules of honor. But why did he come to him to collect the reward for preventing the battle? Chenren explained that he had 50 pirates, and he had only 60 men. He can be sure that he will not have even half of his men left if they clash in battle. But that doesn't mean that the agency betrayed him and sided with the scaled dragon, and they will regret it. Chenren explained that the Heavenly Dragon Agency did not even think of betraying them. Yomwan-do did not understand what he was talking about, because the fact of betrayal was more than obvious to him. The river will be dry by tomorrow, and the scaled dragon will have no choice but to retreat when the ships leave, so he can take men and bring in herbs and stones. Then let them transplant trees and other plants, so the soil won't be washed away, and they will have a path that won't flood until the next rainstorm. If there is an obstacle here, the scaled dragon will not be able to move freely and control the valley, so it was a brilliant decision. They will have to get off the ships, but the land is already the territory of the great turtle, and they will not have a chance. And it was true. Yomwan-do ordered his men to immediately lower and hide their weapons. He told the young master that there seemed to be a misunderstanding between them and apologized for making so much noise without understanding. Chenren said that it was too early to relax because the scaled dragon's gangway was broken, so they could not ferry the convoy to the other side. But the agency is in a big hurry, and for everything to go according to plan, they need them to leave without the leader suspecting anything, so he asked what he needed. They needed hundreds of logs no thicker than a human hand to make a pontoon, and he asked that they drop them at the foot of the mountain. Yomwan-do asked if he really wanted him to lower his head in front of those bastards, even though they owed him a favor, but they couldn't do that. Chenren looked slyly at Poon Jin-yang, hinting that she would now have to get something hidden from everyone. He told him that only they would lower their heads. Doc Hackman asked him to give him 50 coins for his joint work. He was outraged because he hadn't even taken the valley for himself for an hour, and now he wanted him to work with him for 50 coins. He was completely crazy. Chenren asked him to agree, because the valley would soon return to his hands anyway, and they had almost succeeded in deceiving them, so why make this noise again? Yomwang-do heard that the fourth master had become the best in the exam, and now he realized that he was not among the fools. He agreed and said he should consider it gratitude for his help, and Chenren said he was just doing what he had to do. But the leader didn't want to be in debt, so he started looking for something behind his back. He took out a small tube and handed it to him, saying that it was a gift for him, and the young master was curious about what was inside. This was Kun's poison, which could only be found in his camp, and at the bottom of the cloth was a finger-sized cloth completely soaked in it, enough to defeat an elephant. He has heard that such a powerful poison is worth as much gold as what it can destroy, and he is sure that he wants to give him a thing of that value. This would be a sign of his goodwill in response to the loyalty he had shown them, and he asked to receive him and also to take the money. Holding Kun's poison in one hand and a bag of money in the other, he did not understand why he had returned the money to him. The reward they will receive is full control over the valley and its future security. Since they have failed to protect it themselves, they should at least repay those who helped them with this. They were completely shocked by the course of events, and Chen Ren said that this was not part of his plans at all. They returned in complete silence, and Chen Ren noticed that Pun Jinyang was looking strange, so he asked her why she was pouting. She said she was a little shocked by the events of the river crossing, the pirates who almost started a fight, and the broken pontoon. All of these problems just happened to be solved at once. Gabulim said that this was a small part of what they had achieved. The valley had always been their main problem. If they could build a way without flooding, then they will have the most direct and shortest route. It is difficult to say how much benefit they received for almost nothing. Chen Ren even thought this through in advance. It's good that everything went almost completely according to plan. No matter how stupid the camp leaders were, he succeeded not because he was more cunning than them, but because he knew the future. You cannot relax because of a small success. You must constantly train to become stronger. Gabulim wanted to ask Chen Ren. He said that he gives the head half of all the coins, and he noticed that the agency gave him 3 bags of 50 coins each, so isn't half of 150 coins 75 coins? Then why did the head of the big turtle take 50 as if it was necessary? Pun Jinyang began to panic that they would be discovered and put in jail. Gabulim had a request to the 4th master because he ordered the escort soldiers to go on foot. He asked to make an exception for him because if they want to complete the mission without any problems, they need at least one experienced scout on horseback. Chen Ren wanted to object to him, but he said that such a trifle was not a problem for him. Without listening to his decision, he walked away proudly and confidently because the master had no choice but to agree. Pun Jinyang did not miss the opportunity to also beg for a request. She wanted to sleep under the roof at least tomorrow. Catching up with Gabulim, she said that she hadn't felt the softness of a bed in so long and that she needed a hot bath because she was so sweaty. Chen Ren felt outraged and said to himself that this was not part of his plans at all. The day after they left the Chansa Valley, the convoy arrived in Yangzhou for their first destination. The merchants were given all the silk with which all 5 horse-drawn chariots were filled. The only thing left to do was to transport 9 coffins from Jiangshi to Mount Jianyu. Zheng Riangjiayi asked the 4th master if everything went well, but he did not understand what he was referring to. After all, the master even skipped breakfast to go with his friend and warrior Ga on some unclear business, but he assured him that he had already dealt with it. But the chairman hinted that his clothes smelled like fried chicken. He also asked suspiciously whether the agency had any problems with money. Of course, he says that he has figured out everything, or maybe he thinks that the bandits would join forces to help them cross for free. But Zhang Riangye said that he was just drunk. He didn't have to make such an excuse, and Chen Ren, running away from the conversation, shouted that this was his main problem. He drove up to Pun Jinyang and asked how much further they had to go, and she told him that it usually takes 5 days to get from Yangzhou to the mountain, but they could make it in 3. If they took a shortcut, he asked what kind of shortcut. She said that their short journey would be through a weeping forest. This place is filled with beautiful trees. In the summer, they are covered with flowers. Now it is autumn. They can taste chestnuts and hazelnuts. He asked why the road is short and has a beautiful view. So why is it not used? Agencies and merchants used to walk along it, but 20 years ago, followers of the Dragon's Glory cult settled there. The name is cool, but in fact, it is an evil cult that worships some unknown god, and their classes are also very strange, and they suffer from some mystical sores. Their basic idea is that if you have something wrong with a part of your body, you need to cut off the same part of a healthy person's body, and they hunt people. Many of their victims are already famous traders and warriors from large associations, and local agencies have tried to unite to deal with them once and for all. But this forest is too big. Cult leader is not without intelligence. They set many traps, and their scouts are scattered almost all over the forest. If they are going to win in time by going through a weeping forest, it is better not to do it. Punjin, Yang said she understood his fears, but nothing bad would happen to them as long as she was with them. He asked them how he was so sure about that, and she said it was a bit personal, but said that the occultists in that forest were very afraid of her grandfather. Everyone looked at each other, but only Chen Ren knew her secret and who her grandfather was. The Heavenly Dragon Agency's convoy arrived at the Weeping Forest late at night. Li Chen Ren thought that he did not feel any cult followers nearby. They have saved a day in the valley and will gain another if they go through the forest, a difference of 2 days, and they take the second route. If Chen Ren had not changed anything, the martial artist would have appeared at the foot of Mount Kigma and destroyed the entire convoy. Now they are in a different place and time. He will begin to think that he has no luck left if they cross paths in this life. The chance is small, so we must not let our guard down. Gabulam approached him and ordered him to report. They examined everything within a 30-meter radius and saw nothing suspicious. 2 soldiers and 3 porters were also posted to watch, and they will change every hour. Chen Ren ordered 2 more soldiers to be added, and that he asked everyone not to light fires, and that he would personally join the first guard. Poon Jinyang said that she had said before that if they appeared, she would deal with them. She also said that it was too cold to spend the night without a fire. Chen Ren objected that there was no point in making too much noise if you could sneak out quietly. He asked Zhang Riangi how the native speakers were being trained to ride. He replied that they would soon learn. Chen Ren asked if 3 days would be enough time to learn, and the man replied that they had been training horses for half their lives. The 4th master thanked him for following his stupid orders without delay for the past 3 days and apologized for his unworthy behavior. Starting tomorrow, he will again be the head of the escort, as they had agreed, and he hopes that they will return safe and sound. Zheng Riangui did not expect such nobility from the 4th master and could only say that he would try to keep it that way. He was asked if he knew anything about the Jiangshi they were transporting and said that they had died in a martial arts battle in the Jiangxia Mountains. Perhaps he knows some details about the battle itself, and he has only heard that the chairman has access to information that ordinary soldiers do not know about. He asked why they were so interested, and Chen Ren had heard several masters talking in the morning about how it was not so easy to defeat a great demon. Zheng Rengye said tensely that there was no point in hiding it from them if they already knew. There has long been a legend about a mystical millennial earthworm, also called the Spirit of Heaven and Earth, who lives on Mount Wujishan on Hainan Island. It sleeps deep underground all day and bathes in the moonlight at night. On the surface, it is said that if you eat it, you will be energized by the energy it has accumulated. There is nothing strange about the existence of such a worm for hundreds of years. The problem was that it was caught. If a first-class master gets such a worm, it will change his life forever, and he will become one of the 10 strongest in the world. The first person to find it was an ordinary herbalist who had no idea what value it held, so he went around showing it to everyone until it was destroyed. As a martial arts master, he took the worm for himself, but almost immediately lost his life in the hands of a stronger master. This went on for a month until he ended up in the hands of a great demon from Jiangxi province, and it seems that he was the one who had the worm. Is it the same demon that the Taoist spoke of at the sorting ceremony? The chairman replied that it was most likely a great demon hiding in the Xianxia mountains between Jiangxi and Zhejiang provinces, where he lived as a hermit. He was catching people and feeding them a worm. Poon Jinyang was already jumping out of her seat at what she had heard and asked if he had really done it. The worm is very poisonous, and there were rumors that this was done to neutralize the poison. 100 masters went hunting for him, and more than half of them were killed or wounded, and the demon was also seriously wounded, so he hid in the mountains. After that, craftsmen from orthodox and non-orthodox sects joined forces to surround the mountain and set up a net from which there was no escape. This is the last thing the commander-in-chief heard about the situation, Poon Jinyang, saying that it was a horror and asking what kind of person this demon was. Gabulam began to tell us that the old man is known as an attractive flower. Living in the Shiwandashan Mountains in Guangdong Province, despite his nickname, everyone considered him a madman. During all these events, it became clear that he was strong enough to be called a great demon. He lost only 1 battle in his entire life. The head of the Namgong Lightning Sword Clan, Namgong Yuyong, was wounded by an imperial sword technique and left with a scar in the form of lightning on his face. Chen Ren thanked him for telling him and hoped that he would be caught soon, but it was getting late, so he suggested that they take a couple of sips of wine and go to bed. He gave his last order and passed the throat to Zhang's chief escort. But suddenly there was a strong, unexplained explosion, and everyone was scared, and Gabulam asked if the fourth master was okay. Li Chengren said that he was fine, but he was thinking about what could have happened to the chariot. Suddenly, one of the 9 coffins magically rose to the top and froze in midair. First, the Jiangshi's hand broke out of the coffin, and then his hands tore open the wooden lid, showing everyone his face and asking where he was. Having completely left the Taruna, the Jashni was heading towards the escort convoy. He said that he didn't care who was here because he would kill them all. The head of the convoy gave the order to take out weapons in a 6-sword formation. They needed to suppress the Jiangshi. All the soldiers of the escort rushed in front of the Jiangshi to attack and neutralize it. But as it turned out, this Jiangshi had so much strength that he easily threw all the attackers away from him in different directions. Zhang Riangai swung his sword at his legs, and he jumped up at the same moment, as if he knew where he was going to strike. The Jiangshi, in turn, jumped up unsteadily and attacked the commander-in-chief from the air, stretching out his bony hand and grabbing him by the neck. Li Chengren was about to rush to his aid, but someone's hand stopped him. It was Gabulam's hand, and he explained to the young master that it was a bad idea because the situation was very bad and that he should stay away from him. All the soldiers of the escort were very worried about their commander, who was frozen in midair in the outstretched hand of the Jiangshi. Forbidding the fourth master to come close to the battlefield, Gabulam, drawing his sword, rushed to rescue Zhang Riangi. He moved right at them, using his 18th movement grab technique. Quick as lightning, he slipped behind his head and just touched his hat, thus giving him a warning, and turned around to see his face. Now the Jiangshi held in his hands not only the commander-in-chief, but also the escort soldier, Gabulem. Everyone said that it was impossible, but the fourth master ordered them to move away from them 10 steps at once. Chen Ren approached him and apologized for not recognizing him immediately and thus showing him disrespect, saying that he had been expecting him. The attractive, respectable flower was not expecting this, wondering how he could recognize him while still holding the soldiers in his arms. He asked who he was, and the master ordered him to let his comrades go so he could introduce himself, and he promised that he would not regret it. Attractive Flower tightened his grip on the necks of the convoy soldiers, wondering if the bastard was going to bargain with him. If he wanted to destroy them, Chen Ren said, he would have done it a long time ago, and they would not have been able to hide from him anyway, so why complicate things? He handed him a bottle, saying that it was a trifle on his part, but asked him to take it and quench his thirst. He huffed and agreed, having first thrown away Commander-in-Chief Zhang by force. While the attractive Flower was greedily drinking wine, the escort soldiers rushed to save the Commander-in-Chief. After quenching his thirst, he asked if it was Shaoxing wine, since they were rich. Why did they carry such junk with them? He said that it was enough to waste his time, that he should tell him how he recognized him, and that he was interested in him and had been waiting for him. It would be better to tell the young master everything as it is while he is finishing the wine if he tries to escape, or his answer is not satisfactory. At the same second, he kicked a stone from the ground, which hit a tree right behind the young master with incredible speed. The tree broke and fell from such a blow, and the attractive Flower said that this would happen to his head. Chen Ren had heard about the battle in the Shangxia Mountains and tried to analyze everything from his point of view. If he had been seriously wounded, how would he have avoided the grid tactics? The best and only way to get the millennial worm out of there was to place it in the body of a dead soldier. Then he would erase all the remnants of his energy from his body, go far into the mountains to heal all his wounds, and after a while, break through the encirclement too. He took the worm, but miscalculated in that he did not think that it would turn into a Jiangshi that they would transport. He noticed that this was not his real face, was it? He asked the master if he thought that there might be a worm in one of the Jiangshi, why he opened them to test his guess. He explained that to do such a thing for his own benefit would not only be disrespectful to the soldiers who laid down their lives for his well-being, but also an insult. The sect that asked them for help had a scar on Pretty Flower's face, and he said that he was an interesting guy who could deceive thousands of people, who came after him into the mountains, and a soldier of the escort took him and bit him, but that's why he was waiting for him. Chen Ren saw that the attractive Flower had shown his true self, which meant that it was time to act immediately. He launched a large pillar of bright light, which then divided into many small ones that froze together in the air. As soon as Chen Ren did this, the hand of the attractive Flower was already approaching him to destroy him for such an act, and he asked what he had done. He was pinned to the ground by a strong arm and said that this was a net tactic from which he would not be able to get out. It was a signal that he had been spotted, and in half an hour there would be 30 sects gathering here and bringing thousands of soldiers to kill him. Attractive Flower was very angry about this, calling Chen Ren a bastard and shouting that he would destroy him. But the young master said he would help him break the chase and get out of here, or maybe he wanted his remains to be fed to dogs. After he loses a battle with 1,000 soldiers, just to try to break through with a worm, his words made him think about it. Attractive Kvitka said that at first he had led him into a trap, and now he was offering to help. Li Chongrin told him all this, but he had one condition. He asked to give him half the energy of the spirit of heaven and earth. He just laughed in his face and said that he remembered him. When the Taoist brought him to the Heavenly Dragon Agency, it was there that he made a speech about how even if they had died in the war, it would have been the soldiers of that country who had died. There would be no agency, and since they made such a sacrifice, they should not be accompanied by it. And now it turns out that he not only used the fallen soldiers as bait, but also did it for his own benefit. Everybody called him the Fourth Master, but is he really the son of that old king of the agency? How could such a great warrior have such a crook? Although he likes it better, he agreed to give up half of it if he got him out of the trap. But he is not going to let the rest of the escort soldiers go. Chen Ren swore to him that if one of them did not survive, he could not expect help from him. He knows how to blackmail, but it won't work on him. First, he will kill everyone and then tear out his tongue and ears so that he knows that it is better not to say some words. Pun Jin, Young shouted to him that the lightning sword was on its way to him. After all, he was involved in the establishment of a grid from which there is no escape and will most likely arrive here soon. The attractive Flower turned in her direction and asked her who she was and why she was dressed as a boy. All the soldiers of the escort looked at each other in confusion, not understanding how a girl could be among them and how they had not noticed it. Since its essence has already been revealed, she took off her hat and said that she thought that words alone would not be enough for him, and she raised her sword to the mountain. She used the same technique that her grandfather had once used on the attractive Flower, thus showing her strength in front of him. Everyone had not yet recovered from the news of the girl in their convoy, and was now marveling at the lightning sword technique she had performed. Attractive Flower asked who she was related to Lightning Sword, and she said that it was very good that he remembered this technique. Letting her hair down, she said that Namgun Yuan was her grandfather, and now he must understand that these were not empty threats. Zhang Rianji and Gabulem simultaneously thought that they were looking at a really young girl. She wailed that if he destroyed the young master, she and the rest of the warriors would lay down their lives and fight back. They have virtually no chance, but they will definitely hold him for 15 minutes. All the soldiers supported the young girl and stood behind her. Taking a defensive stance and putting her swords forward, she shouted at him to make a decision as soon as possible. He started counting to 10, and anyone who didn't get out of here in time would be left without a head. Zhang hurried to the master, but he just put his hand forward. Ordering to take people away immediately, as time was running out, the commander-in-chief had no choice but to obey his order. He ordered all the things to be left there. The porters who cannot run fast will ride the soldiers in the 6-sword formation they leave the forest. Even without this freak, this forest has enough enemies, and the sect's followers specialize in oppressing martial artists. It was good that Chairman Zhang Riangyi did not argue and carried out his order. After all, in a normal situation, an escort soldier would never drop a load, and his group's reputation would be forever tarnished. But this is much better than dying so senselessly at the hands of a great demon. This will be his burden for the rest of his life as a convoy officer. Namgun Soso ran up to the young master to help him get up and said that she would explain to him later why she was dressed like that. He yelled at her that this was not the time for fooling around, that she had to get out of here immediately, and she said she had to stay, and he kept pushing her to leave. Soso said she appreciated his desire to protect her, but if she did not go with him, there could be many more victims and he would need her knowledge of the area. He thought that she must have forgotten that there was a cult in the forest, and that it was dangerous for the convoy. Attractive Flower told them to be quiet and threw one of the Jiangshi on his shoulder, saying that she should also go with them. She would be useful. Having said that, he went forward and ordered them to follow him. They have been out of the forest for 4 days now, and the Attractive Flower still hasn't left them. We had to make our way through the mountains without the opportunity to eat or wash, as if we were destitute. He also told Soso to save her strength because she was needed for something. She told him that she could also help him, but he said that he would kill him if he found out. When Chen Ren was going to tear him into small pieces, and meanwhile, he was pulling him, and the demon was pushing him. They came to a cave in the mountains, and an attractive flower stood in the rain near it, looking for something. When he came back to the cave, he told them that they could make a fire because it was unbearably cold. They made a fire, and Chen Ren asked him if he could cook and eat the frog, and he asked what he was going to cook it in. He looked around and saw a long-forgotten cauldron in the corner. He said that someone seemed to have lived here, and that they might even need the dishes, but he just sighed and said that he could do what he wanted. Chen Ren started cooking and washed the frog, and under the waterfall, he also collected enough water in the cauldron. When he kneaded the dough, they asked him what it would be and where he would get the flour, and he replied that he would make noodles and always carry some flour with him. And what he needed the frog for, he replied that he would make broth from it. Isn't it amazing? Water, a little meat, a little salt, and you get a good soup. He asked the demon to give him the knife he had taken from him, and the demon asked him what he needed it for. The young master explained that he had to cut the noodles, or he wouldn't eat with them, and he said there was barely enough for one plate. The demon threw him his knife, and as soon as he took him prisoner, immediately took his dagger. But as soon as I asked him to come back, he immediately recognized him, albeit with some discontent, as he probably did not see him as a danger, even with a weapon. But he still took it away from him when they met, as if he was afraid that he would kill him in his sleep. Namgun Soso said that the smell was just incredible, and he asked if she wanted to try it too. She said that of course she wanted to, because now was not the time to eat, and he told her to wait a little bit. The dish was almost ready. He handed her a bowl of soup first, and she said she didn't want to deceive him by dressing up as a man. But Chen Ren said that she had not deceived him at all, that he had not expected such an answer. He explained that he immediately realized that she was the student from the exam when they met in a restaurant. She asked him how he guessed and what could have given her away, and he said that a mole on her earlobe had torn it. She said that it couldn't be possible, that he was trying to tell her that he had been leading her by the nose all this time, that he was eating noodles and saying that it was so. He did not think that they would become such close friends, and in time, it was not up to him and not for her to judge him. Soso apologized to him for this, and he, in turn, also apologized to her. She looked at him slyly, asking if they had really become friends. He responded with a sly smile and said that they had been through so much together, and that wasn't enough. She looked at the plate ashamedly and said that it was true. Chen Ren looked at the fire and thought that he couldn't just sit idly by. Attractive Flower took all the items that could be used as weapons, but not all of his weapons were stronger than any other sword. He started a light-hearted conversation, asking the girl how their noodles tasted, and she replied that she had heard that frog tasted like chicken, and it was true. Chen Ren handed the demon a bowl of soup and asked if he wanted to try it, because it tasted better than it looked at first glance. He sat over the Zhongshi and told them to eat it themselves when suddenly something started happening to him. Namgun Soso closed her eyes at what she saw, and the fourth master looked on in disbelief, trying to understand what was going on here. The demon sat over the body and told them to shut up, because it would be very unpleasant if the spirit got scared and ran away. Suddenly, the demon tore the worm out of the Zhongshi with incredible speed. Namgun Soso and Li Chengren did not expect such a rapid and dynamic change in events. The demon was holding the spirit of heaven and earth in his hands, telling him that his time had come. He will feed it with human resources for the last time and wash away all the vile energy, leaving only pure gold. He explained that the internal organs of the dead quickly melt under its influence, so it is important to find living people to neutralize its venom. He turned to Soso because she said she was the granddaughter of the lightning sword. It will not be a threat to him after he absorbs the energy of the spirit. She was supposed to be the last victim to complete the ritual, and after that, he would leave her dead. He plans to bring her body directly into the hands of her grandfather, the great Namgun Yuan, after the ritual. At the same second, the girl screamed with a voice that was not her own from the pain he had hit her key points to paralyze her body so she would not be able to move. He needed a victim full of strength, so it would be better if she did not resist. And it's better not to bite him, because he doesn't want the spirit to die, and so much work to go to waste. Li Chenren took up the sword to protect his friend. He was already preparing to strike him, and thought that there was a big difference in strength between them, but he could use his skill. But the attractive flower repelled his attack as if it meant nothing to him. Chen Ren, even under the influence of his skills, could not predict his movements. It is difficult to imagine how strong he would have been in his normal state. The demon noticed that the young master had sped up and decided to ask him how he did it, and he replied that he wanted to, so he sped up. It was interesting that he did not see any deep knowledge of martial arts in him. Attractive Flower stopped and said that he had changed his mind. He would rather feed the worm to him. After all, it has retained so much energy after such a long journey, it will definitely be enough to remove the remaining poison from the worm. The demon was mocking him ominously, saying that he would first get into his stomach and then absorb all his energy. In one swift movement, he flew to him, knocking the dagger out of his hands, opening his mouth and bringing the worm closer to his face. Chen Ren, unable to even move, could only watch as the demon shoved the spirit into his mouth. Having done his job, the attractive flower mocked him for trying to bring the spirit back to freedom. The fourth master was shaking and thinking about the cold energy that was taking over his insides. After all, it has been absorbing moonlight every night for thousands of years, so is this the energy of Ana maximized? The demon said that he had asked for half of the worm, but he gave him the whole thing. So why is he writhing in pain? Perhaps he is no longer happy about it. How long has he been waiting for this? Let the lightning sword wait a little longer. Even if he is not in that ambush, he will come to him personally. He took a mouthful and triumphantly drank it all down, apparently without leaving a drop. But all the wine he drank went to his head because he was very inattentive, turning his back on them. Chen Ren was a little upset when he wouldn't eat his noodles, but he left his throat unattended, so he had time to add poison to it. He hoped that the demon would pay for his sins in the next world, so he swung a dagger at his back. But the still strong demon threw him into the wall with one hand, as if he weighed nothing. He asked me not to overplay my role. Did he really believe that it would be so easy to leave his life? The attractive flower was sitting in a meditation pose, and the young master immediately realized that he was trying to redirect his energy to suppress the poison. We could not allow this to happen. We had to destroy it at all costs, not only with a knife that could be used as a weapon. He poured boiling soup on his face and asked him if he liked his noodles. Since he was not a resident anyway, he could at least talk to him. Chen Ren had heard that he had lost to the lightning sword in just 10 steps, and that the venom of the Kun snake from Mount Kunshan was to blame. They say that after being poisoned with it, a person will not walk 7 steps, as he thinks it will destroy him, rather than 10 steps of his grandfather, or maybe he will not make it because of the poison. Namgun Soso asked Chen Ren what he was doing now. He said that he was destroying him with his words, but that wasn't what she was asking. She was wondering if he was okay because he had eaten the spirit of heaven and earth. He wondered what had happened to him, and the effect of the worm's venom quickly disappeared. He felt as if he had carelessly entered a deep cave in which he had stumbled upon a beast that was waiting for him. But suddenly he felt a fire in his chest again. Namgun Soso was quite afraid for him. It was the same energy he felt in the restaurant when he first learned about his skill. But no, today it was much hotter than then, and he even thought that at this rate it would be fried to a crisp. It seems that the yang energy from the bamboo scroll and the yin energy accumulated in the spirit of heaven and earth were fighting inside him. The struggle of the two energies in my body was like a hurricane, and I felt as if I could not stand it. After the internal struggle, he sat and wondered what energy in him finally won the scroll, or maybe the worm, or maybe they rubbed each other a little. Chen Ren saw that Soso was lying there, not moving at all, and it scared him. He also noticed that the demon was still sitting in the same position, as if he hadn't stopped him from collecting energy. Strange things were happening to Soso. She was breathing heavily and her body was cold. She froze because she was paralyzed by the demon and could not move, and he asked her to be patient, just a little longer. Chen Ren lit a new fire for her, closer to her, so that she could warm up. The girl felt much better from the heat, but her body was still paralyzed. The young master thought that he needed to heat water in the cauldron. Looking around for the cauldron, he noticed that the demon was still sitting in a meditation pose. Chen Ren was shocked that the old man was still alive. Picking up the cauldron from the ground, he swung to strike the demon's head. But the attractive flower stopped his swing with his hand and asked if he was still alive after eating the worm. The young master smiled and said that it was very tasty. These words and the fact that the energy did not destroy him enraged the demon, so he rushed to attack the young master. It looks like it somehow dissolved in his body, but it's even better than poison. There was only pure energy left. The demon was strangling the young master, threatening to drink his blood to the last drop. He asked me not to move because he would do it very quickly, and the young master restrained him as best he could. But something went wrong. The demon's eyes rounded, and he asked what the hell was going on. Chen Ren was no longer lying down, but slowly got up, pushing the demon away from him. He hit his head against his and told him to get away from him. The demon was defeated and only rubbed his broken nose, and Chen Ren wondered how he had done it. He looked at his hands and thought about what had happened, because he hadn't even really trained, so maybe it was the effect of the spirit of heaven and earth. The demon explained that the energy of the poison accumulated over 1,000 years, if you use the right techniques to circulate it, can make you one of the strongest. But he has only pure strength now, compared to a whole herd of wild bulls. Does he mean to say that he has become much stronger? Energy alone won't turn him from a sheep into a tiger. Chen Ren asked if he trained hard, he could become one of the strongest warriors in the world. The demon said that this would not be the case, because his dreams would not come true, because he would not come out of this cave alive. Chen Ren was not afraid of his threats, but only said that it was so strange that the demon doesn't look like a tiger anymore, more like a wild, aggressive cat. An equally attractive Chen Ren stood in front of the attractive flower, and now he looked much more powerful and stronger, and he told him to attack him. The angry demon attacked, but Chen Ren, realizing his power, was much more confident than before. He dodged the attacks, thus enraging the old demon even more. Pausing for a second, he realized that the effect was not only from the worm's energy, but the scroll's power had also increased. The only problem was that his body could not yet reveal all that inner potential. But even if he is a toothless tiger, he will still bite the old demon with his gums. Taking advantage of his speed, the young master quickly passed him and stood behind him. He made a backhanded grab, wrapped his arms around his neck, and began to choke him with all his strength. The demon asked him how he was able to take advantage of him and asked for mercy, and Chen Ren said that this was his end. Let him feel what the people he destroyed felt. After a while, Namgun Soso came to and could not believe her eyes. A destroyed demon was lying in front of her, and she asked what had happened. Chen Ren told her that he was already in that state when he woke up, and that he was probably in so much pain that he killed himself. The girl breathed a sigh of relief, and said how good it was that those bandits had given them poison. She was also interested in why he was still completely fine if he ate the worm. He said it was not that easy. She looked at him suspiciously and asked if it was really that hard. Chen Ren said that he put 2 fingers in his mouth and then threw up, and even saw the frog they were eating. He knew she would be surprised, and asked him if he had to hide the fact that he had absorbed the spirit of heaven and earth. Judging by what the demon said, his blood is an elixir filled with energy until he learns to control it. He is literally a mystical creature. In the human body, if someone finds out about it, they will be hunted. Namgun Soso told him that if he was cold, he should put on the clothes made by the demon. He didn't want to do it, but he didn't need the clothes as much as Chen Ren did. As he was undressing the attractive flower, he came across a rather interesting thing on his body. Soso screamed that this could not be, asking her friend for the dagger, who anxiously and carefully handed it to her with yoga. She struck the meteorite dagger with all her might, but it left only a single scratch. A normal sword would have broken long ago. Chen Ren, not understanding where she was going with this, asked what it meant. It was a super strong armor made of sacred dragon scales, a wealth inherited by a demonic cult that lived in the Shiwandashan Mountains. It is said that to make them, artisans spent years processing snow iron that can only be found on a large, snowy mountain. She couldn't understand how the old man had not only survived, but had killed more than half of the soldiers who had tried to catch him in the Jiangxia Mountains. Namgun Soso congratulated him on his new clothes, and he asked why she congratulated him, and she said that the item went to the person who defeated the previous owner. She smiled and said that if he didn't want to keep the trophy, he could tell her that she didn't mind at all. Chen Ren ironically said, "God, it's getting cold. He needs to put on his new armor to keep him warm." Not only the worm's energy, but also such rare armor paid off for him in full. He was heading for the exit of the cave, and Soso asked him where he was going. Chen Ren explained that he was going to hunt something to eat. She reminded him that there were 5 days left before the capital's exam. Her paralysis points are still blocked, and the guy's disguise won't work anymore, but he'll make it to the exam if he hurries. He didn't want to leave her here alone. The girl explained that the cold still has a bad effect on the energy of the Namgun clan members, so even with strong concentration, it will take 5 days to recover. He said he would just take her to the nearest doctor or to the village. They would find nothing in the depths of the ridge except the mountains around them, so the attractive flower brought them here. She said that there was enough food for 4 days, and if any animal wandered in, she could easily deal with it. Li Chengren was definitely different from the rumors about him, but he is still very far from a good reputation, and a simple capital exam will help him with that. She looked up at him sweetly. and wished him to turn him in with lightning speed. She truly believed in him. Even though she said she would be fine, he couldn't leave her empty-handed, so he left her all the food and his meteor dagger. If he passes the capital's exam, he will become one of the strongest warriors in the world. Will he be able to get a place as an elder in the external sect she's going to create for him? Sounds like a dream. Lee Jongsang was rereading the scrolls, and one of them said that it had rained twice and washed away all traces of the fourth master and his friend who had left the forest. But it was not yet clear whether they were alive or not, and they continued to call out in the mountains. He read this report in front of the entire agency and the escort soldiers. Gabulam and Chairman Zhang Riangi also heard the report and were mentally worried about their comrades. The master of the Yellow Dragon House sent a letter to the searchers on the border and promised a lot of gold so that if the demon crosses the border, they will know about it. The master of the Red Dragon House has cooperated with the government and people of Shanxi province, and they won't catch him, but they will definitely pick up the trail. The master of the Blue Dragon House sent their portraits to the Hao Clan beggar sect and to the 7 assassin sects of the Central Plain, and the army and government were involved in the search. After listening to the reports, the king of the agency reminded them that they had forgotten that they had to capture the beautiful flower alive. One of the soldiers came up to him and told him that the magistrate of Hangzhou was looking for him and asked him to tell him that he could only speak to him personally. His older sons were outraged and told him that it was not the time for guests, so he should send him back. Li Yolryong was angry that he had come again with soldiers like the previous time and insisted on meeting the damn old man. But he was brought in by his father's stern voice, who told him to show respect for the board representative. The magistrate was led in and escorted to the king, who, as always, greeted the king in good humor and asked how he was doing. The king said that it had happened before, and the magistrate said that he would help him forget about the anxieties that caused his headaches. He offered him the same drink as the previous time, but the king of the agency was in a bad mood and immediately asked him what business he had to see him. Just like the previous time, they laid out a carpet and set up a table with tea, and he began to read the text. Everyone listened carefully to what he had to say, and he said that on July 8th. Li Jiansan, the father of Li Chenren, born in Hangzhou, is to appear, but when they received the order of His Imperial Majesty, they stood with their mouths open, not believing their ears. The chief manager reminded the king that he should show respect, since it was from the emperor himself. Li Zhongsang punched his fist and said that he was accepting His Majesty's order. Li Chengren was born on July 8th in Hangzhou. He passed the capital's exam with the best score, which no one expected, which meant that the fourth master was alive and had passed the exam better than anyone else. Li Zhongsang's family, which had raised such a great talent for the benefit of the empire and the country, receives 100 gold yangs and 16 hectares of land. The magistrate handed him the land documents and congratulated the king of the agency on his son's success in the capital's exam. He warned him that the news was good, but he did not believe it. But the king still could not believe that his fourth son was alive. Suddenly, an unknown man on horseback burst into the agency, disrupting their ceremony. The escort commander ordered the horses to stop, but Li Gabren told him not to do so and to lower his weapon because they were not enemies. Namgun Yuyong's grandson, Namgun Seok, visited their agency. Li Gabren greeted him saying that he had arranged a surprise for them and asked him what brought him here, and he replied that he had come to meet the king of the agency. The first son asked if something serious had happened, and he said that he would like to tell him the news personally. Gabren introduced him as his friend, Namgun Si. Okay, he is the grandson of the head of the lightning sword. Family Namgun Yuyong King also asked what brought him. Seok apologized for showing up unannounced, but he brought urgent news with him. He told the king that his youngest son, Li Chengren, was alive. His sister was also fine and had already returned to her home, and the king asked what he meant by his sister. The attractive flower wanted to cross the Yellow River and head north, but his sister and Li Chengren were able to escape while he was sleeping. After that, the fourth master rushed to the capital to take the exam, while his sister stayed behind and spent some time recovering from her injury. She also said that his son risked his life to protect her from the beautiful flower. So his grandfather told him to personally come to thank him and invite the agency king and Chenren to their clan's main estate. On behalf of his grandfather and sister, he expresses his sincere gratitude to the Heavenly Dragon Agency. Everyone present began to congratulate the king of the agency on this event. The chief manager laughed and said that the young master had done so many things, but he was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, the fourth master proudly rides into the agency on a horse in person. After a hard and long journey, I soaked in a hot bath and thought about how there is no place like home. It might sound strange, but the capital's exam was much easier for him than the provincial one. He knew all the answers of the best examinee from his previous life, and they had two identical answer sheets, but he was 2 hours faster. So, this played a role. They definitely thought that he had cheated from him. He did not feel guilty about it. Because if he had passed the exam, he would have become a magistrate of Hangzhou in 10 years and would have caused great problems for these lands. But this will not happen in this life, even though he did not know whether there would be changes for the better if someone else became the magistrate. Chan Sam asked if he could have some hot water, but the young master refused, telling him to rest. The servant exhaled and said that he had already rested while he was away, but he could have sent a carrier pigeon from the capital because he was very worried about him. Chen Ren explained that he ran for 5 days without sleep and rest and then took the exam. Does he really think he had any strength left in him to do so? The servant asked him how he was able to return to the agency so quickly. Usually, it takes 20 days to get from the capital, but he got there in 5. Chen Ren received a golden badge with 3 horses on it. Chan himself looked at it and asked what it was, and the young master said that it was a badge he had been given. He moved along the big canal and showed it at every transshipment point, and they would give him a fresh horse at that time. The servant said that he was not a representative of the board, so why did they give him this badge in the first place? And the master said that it was a long story. This is the owner, Kim Bul-wee, Deputy Minister of Personnel, who introduced himself as a student of Li Jong-un. The Deputy Minister of Personnel asked him if he was John San's son. Even the magistrate of Hangzhou behaves cautiously with the king of the agency to think that he is just in front of a person who can say his name so calmly. He told him to raise his head because he and his father hadn't seen each other for a long time, but they were on good terms, and that was the only reason he was allowed to meet him. He had heard that the young master had passed the exam with the best score all in his father's name. Who would have thought that John San would raise such a young dragon before they met? But the last thing he expected was that he would use his son to gain influence in the management. Chen Ren thought that many different meanings could be caught in his words. It was not a casually spoken phrase, but a dangerous remark with a life at its end. They stopped, and Kim Bul-wee told him directly that he shouldn't even expect to get a place in the management in the near future. Even though he passed the exam on his own, it does not mean that he will get the position because new people are recruited on a need basis. Over the past 10 years, there have been many worthy students from good families in Jiang'an province who have been given positions, so there have been too many scholars and officials. Therefore, they had to compromise and not give important positions, even to those who showed the best results in the exam for all, without exception. Chen Ren pondered the minister's words and realized that they were not meant to comfort him. He also noticed that he started talking about politics for a reason. He thought that he had already used the existing system enough for his own benefit, so there was no point in resisting and insisting on getting the position. He realized that he was already living proof that the Hangzhou-based Heavenly Dragon Agency had irreplaceable talent, and he would return home and build on his father's work. But the master asked if he had misunderstood him, and he almost directly said that his attempts to become a scientist would go to waste. Chen Ren told him that he understood and that he could plan anything, but he wanted to ask him for one small thing. Can the fastest riders notify all the transshipment points in the area that he has become the best in the exam? Chen Ren's family was at the origins of the Mirim, and those who passed the imperial exam or were members of the government were always highly respected. That's why his father wanted him to pass it, even if he didn't place well. He will almost certainly be upset when he finds out that he missed the opportunity to become an official, despite the fact that he passed the exam better than anyone else. But if my father realizes that the deputy minister helped protect their pride, he will definitely be very grateful. It could not have been that their relationship was at fault, but that he or his family had received a large bribe from the Heavenly Dragon Agency. After all, if you want to leave the best person out of the job, you have to compensate for it somehow. Kim Bul-wee laughed and then burst out laughing at his words. The young master did not know what exactly made him laugh so much, so he stood there in complete confusion. If he wanted to educate a person with such talent, the deputy minister would not be able to sleep if he sent such a young man away empty-handed. His opinion has changed, and if he insists, he can help him solve this problem. If a young master says that everything is the will of heaven, then he is the one who can make even heaven sleep. Chen Ren even got a shiver down his spine. Is this old man really that strong? He could not even see the limits of the power of the deputy minister of personnel. So he said that everything was fine. He understood the important tasks performed by the department. He was still young and stupid, so he was not ready to take on such responsibility. He begged him to return to his father's shadow and deal with the internal affairs of the agency. He had heard that Chen Ren was no ordinary young man because he was the best in both exams, but he could not imagine that he was that good. He is probably disappointed, but let him not be too upset. He will remember this meeting, and in the future, they will meet again. And for now, let him be happy with a small position. The young master wondered what other small position he should be satisfied with. The capital exam was not a military exam, but since his family was at the origins of the Murim, it could give him a small position, though not a Jin Wei. Chen Ren, as a secret guard, will receive 100 gold pieces and 16 hectares of land. But how could he hold such a position without being a member of the Jin Wei? He begged to think again. The deputy minister did not ask him to actually do this work. He will only get a place, and in the future, this will help him get into the ministry. He is a man from the outskirts. Is such a high position so necessary? He said that he was doing it so that no one else would have time to take him to themselves. The deputy minister looked at him gloatingly and told him to remember this well, that when the time came, he would become his subordinate, and Chen Ren's veins even froze inside. After listening to him, Cheng asked if he really meant to say that the old man had made sure that no one else would recruit him. In order to appease the family of the best student, the young owner gave the badge, money, and land, saying that this was how it was. The servant laughed and said that if someone else had told him this, he would not have believed it. Until recently, all the carriers shunned him, and he did not have enough money even for food. And he wondered why they all changed their minds and behavior so quickly, and now everything was in place. The young master listened to him with great interest, but he only said that his father should call him soon. He needed to pick up the money and the documents for the land. Chan Sam said that wasn't this good given to his family, to which Chen Ren confidently said that his father would return it all to him anyway. But their conversation was interrupted by a guard who reported that the fourth master was being examined by his father. Quickly dressing, the young master hurried to meet with the king of the agency. Li Zhongsang was having tea with the general manager and Song Chan and asked if he had had enough rest, and he said that he had. He was told in detail about everything that had happened since then. He wanted to tell him a lot about the escort mission, but he would not, since the soldiers and carriers asked him not to. Li Chengren bowed to his father and thanked him for this, but his father asked him if he had heard from Namgun Soso. He said that he hadn't heard from her yet, and he wondered why his father had suddenly started talking about her. Why did these old eccentrics ask for her at all? He now began to look at them all with suspicion. He only said that he thought she would visit them soon, if only to return his meteorite dagger. The old chief manager began to shake the young master's hands joyfully, saying that he had done a great job. The king of the agency said that on the day he returned, Chairman Namgun sent them an invitation from Murim to their home. Namgun Yuyong is more influential than him, except for their family's pasts, so they cannot refuse his invitation. He suddenly realized that it would not be Namgun Soso who would come to them, but rather they would go to her grandfather. Therefore, preparations are about to begin. Not only do we need to collect gifts, but also decide who will go with them. The chief administrator attacked the king, saying that he was the eldest and Chen Ren's uncle, and they would be well received if he went with them. If we are talking about dignity, they should bring their escort commander with them. Even Namgun Seok personally invited him when he came. They gave examples of their merits to the agency in front of each other, trying to win the king of the agency over to their side to go with him and his son. Chen Ren didn't understand why they were arguing and fighting so much, since they were high-ranking people in the agency and behaved like little children. The general manager said that he was still young and that he would have many more chances to meet him. Song Chang shouted at him that he had no way of knowing whether they would be invited back at least once more. The manager shouted that he would see enough of him, and Sung Chan said that he would see him at Zhong Ryong and Soso's wedding. He wants to marry Soso, but they clearly misunderstood something. Chen Ren thinks that this can be discussed only after receiving an invitation, which is still just a rumor. And if they want strong and close relations between the heads of the next generation so much, it is better to marry his older brothers first. The father smiled kindly out of the corner of his mouth and looked approvingly at his younger son. Li Zhongsang told him that he had done a great job in the capital exam. Since ancient times, it has been accepted that there should be a carrot and a stick in life, and maybe he would like to ask for something from it. Chen Ren said he had already heard that the magistrate had paid him a personal visit. His father put a scroll in front of him and asked if he wanted to take it. It was a land deed. He can take them away, even though the emperor gave them to the family, but it was he who deserved them, and they belong only to him. Personally, Chen Ren thanked his father in a bow. The manager asked him if he would even refuse, to which the master said that he was of the opinion that one should take it while it is given. But that was not all. His father told him that he wanted to add something of his own. Since he already has money and land, he will give him a pavilion from himself. At this point, Chen Ren became the happy owner of the 17th pavilion, and he was speechless at the gift.